Chapter 2343. Ever since the Qing clan was exterminated, Qing Hui and Qing Yu stayed behind in Yizichen City. Qing Hui was now a general and Jinjuki's assistant. He commanded the city's soldiers, ensured the city's safety, and coordinated the deployment of troops. Not long ago, Qing Hui broke through to the star rank. He was one of the top experts in the surrounding villages. He was able to break through thanks to Mu Yi's sword. After he recovered, he felt that his strength had increased. He thought that he would be satisfied if he could break through to the 9th level. Unexpectedly, he broke through to the star level in one go. Han Qing and the others even held a special celebration for his breakthrough. At the time, Yizichen had been busy raising his strength, so he hadn't gone. However, he'd heard about it. How did Uncle Qing get hurt? Isn't he already in the star state? Yizichen frowned, then let out a deep sigh when he saw Han Qing's expression. Forget it, bring me there. Don't hide such things from me in the future. The two hurried to the infirmary. When they arrived, Chicano was also there, standing outside the infirmary door. City Lord. Yizichen nodded, then walked to the door. In the room, the city's doctors were in the middle of treating him. Yizichen looked in from the outside, then his expression grew unsightly. How did you get hurt so badly? At this moment, Qing Hui had completely lost consciousness. His shirt had been taken off and placed in the corner of the room. From his clothes, it could be seen that he had lost a lot of blood. By the time Yizichen saw it, Qing Hui's upper body had already been cleaned with water. The ground was covered in blood. His chest was burnt black, and there was a sword wound on his abdomen. Who did it? Yizichen squinted his eyes at Chicano and Han Qing. He could tell from their expressions that they knew. To be able to injure Qing He to such an extent. More importantly, Qing Hui had hollow ores as well. Speak. Yizichen roared angrily with a frown when he saw that Chicano and Han Qing still hadn't reigned. City Lord, we don't know either. After hesitating for a while, Han Qing gritted his teeth and said, when this subordinate found him, he was already unconscious and heavily injured. Where did you find it? The Vicious Beast area, 15 miles outside the city. The Ferocious Beast area was the Ferocious Beast area. The natives often called it the Ferocious Beast area, 15 li outside the city. If Yizichen remembered correctly, that should be where the grizzly bears were active. His strength was only at the 3rd level of the domain realm. With the strength of Green Obscurity's star level, not to mention being injured to this extent, it was already very good that those grizzly bears were not exterminated. Furthermore, even if it was a grizzly bear, the fierce beast should have attacked with its sharp claws. Qing Hui's charred chest and the sword wound on her abdomen were obviously man-made. You're still hiding it from me. Yizichen frowned, then shifted his gaze between Chicano and Han Qing. He was sure that things weren't that simple. This subordinate also found a letter by Qing Hui's side. At that moment, Han Qing took out an envelope that was completely dyed red with blood and placed it in Yizichen's hands. Yizichen reached out and received the letter. Activate. In less than half a minute. F***CK. Yizichen tightly gripped the letter in his hand. Seeing Yizichen's expression, Han Qing and Chicano quickly followed suit. City Lord, please calm down. We don't want you to. I don't blame you. Yizichen shook his head towards Han Qing and company, then couldn't help but clench his fist as he read the contents of the letter. This letter was written to him by the Fire Elemental Commander. Little friend Yi. Seeing the words, I feel like I am. Long time no see. I wonder how little friend is doing. I can tell that little friend misses this sovereign a lot, and even sent people to investigate this sovereign's information. This sovereign saw your subordinate, and also sent people to take good care of him. This can be considered a return gift to little friend Yi for the great gift you gave this sovereign last time. Thanks to little friend Yi, I was able to truly experience what it means to live. If I have time, this sovereign will definitely pay you a visit. I wish you luck in martial arts. Fire Xia. He's actually still alive. Yizichen let out a deep sigh, then put the letter away, while his eyes were filled with resentment. The situation back then was just too bad. If the reinforcements had come an hour earlier, and if Yi Zichen hadn't fainted from forcefully activating the heaven-sweeping sword, he would have definitely gotten rid of the fire elemental commander. Then, he wouldn't have been able to escape and continue to wreak havoc in the world. 2 months ago, Suhu was still discussing with Yi Zichen how to deal with the fire elemental commander. At that time, Suhu had no choice but to rely on livestock to survive. When Yi Zichen saw this letter, he might have already found a new host, and it was a body that was very compatible with fire. Signed, Fire Xia. It seems like this is the name of the fire elemental commander. He's going to pay me a visit. Is this a threat? I really didn't expect him to finally find a good host after being beaten up like a stray dog for several months, and feel like he's fine again. What is he trying to say? Is he bringing people to attack the city? Yi Zichen wasn't being arrogant. His city wouldn't even be able to enter without several tens of universe-level experts. Why did Uncle Qing run into him? Yi Zichen frowned. Suhu's people had always been in charge of investigating the fire elemental commander's position. At that moment, Suhu hadn't told him anything about the fire elemental commander. Actually, Qing Hui has been investigating the fire elemental commander's whereabouts recently, Chicano said. He still hasn't forgotten about his clan's extermination and will investigate whenever he has the time. I try to persuade him, but it's not so easy to let go of the hatred of his clan's extermination. 3 days ago, Qing Hui left the city and hasn't returned since then. This subordinate was worried, so I sent people to look for him, but Han Qing found him. I understand, Chicano nodded. Yi Zichen looked deeply at Qing Hui, who was in the room. You must save Uncle Qing, no matter what price you have to pay. Understood, Chicano nodded. Qing Hui must be healed, regardless of his contributions to the city or Huixie's declaration of war. Only when Qing Hui wakes up will he know about Huixie's exact situation. Qing Yu doesn't know yet, right? Yi Zichen asked Han Qing and company after a moment of silence. She doesn't know. Should we tell her? Let's keep it a secret. Yi Zichen thought about Qing Yu. If she finds out that Qing Hui was injured like this, who knows how devastated she would be. It's best not to let her know about this, that way she won't have to worry. I still stand by what I said. I must do everything I can to see Uncle Qing wake up. With that, Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh. I'll leave this place to you guys. Don't worry, City Lord. Yi Zichen nodded towards Chicano and Han Qing, then left the hallway with a frown. The first thing he did when he walked out was open his friend list. Suhu, do you have time? Come to my city. Chapter 2344. Holder of Chaos City. Yi Zichen. There was no longer anything to hide for the surrounding villages. Suhu understood this very well. Yi Zichen sat in the guest room of the city lord's manor and silently waited for Suhu's arrival. Approximately 4 hours later, the village head, Suhu, entered the room. Future brother, sit. Yi Zichen pointed at the seat in front of him. Suhu subconsciously glanced at Yi Zichen. For some reason, even though Yi Zichen didn't say anything, he had a bad feeling. Yi Zichen silently sat down. Since Yi Zichen didn't say anything, Suhu didn't dare to ask. The atmosphere in the guest room dropped. The deathly silence caused Suhu to be unable to breathe. Future brother? I wonder if future brother has come to find me. I want to know your village's progress in finding the fire monster. Yi Zichen looked up into Suhu's eyes. After Suhu spoke, Yi Zichen looked up into Suhu's eyes. Your village has been in charge of this matter. It has already been more than 2 months. How is your search going? Suhu didn't know how to reply. At the beginning, he did use a lot of power to search for the fire elemental commander. The main reason was because he felt uneasy. The existence of the fire elemental commander made him afraid that his village would be taken away again. He had to put an end to this. After searching for a month without any results or any progress, he started to gradually lose interest in the existence of the fire elemental commander. More importantly, that month, even until now, there were no traces of the fire elemental commander around his village. Thus, he didn't search anymore. Future brother, to be honest, I already gave up on searching for him a month ago. Suhu hesitated for a moment, then told Yi Zichen the truth. I guessed it. Yi Zichen wasn't surprised by Suhu's answer. He nodded and took a sip of tea. This tea was unique to the second universe. At least, Yi Zichen had never seen it in the first universe. You didn't get any results after so long. If you keep searching, then I'm starting to doubt your efficiency. Yi Zichen put down the teacup and nodded. Why did you give up halfway? I suspect that he's already dead. Suhu crossed his hands and placed them on the table with a rather nervous expression. He didn't know why he was acting like this. In terms of age, he was clearly much older than Yi Zichen. What's more, he was the village head of a village, so he could treat everyone with confidence. Unfortunately, in front of Yi Zichen, he felt as if he were sitting on pins and needles. Could it be that she was afraid of the power behind Yi Zichen? Chaos City had been developing very quickly in the past few months, and it had almost become the leader of the city. Even so, as the village chief, he shouldn't be acting like this. I'm not his subordinate. His village did not become a vassal either. He's dead. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and smiled. Why would you think that? It's like this. Hearing that, Suhu told Yi Zichen the results of his investigation for the past month in full detail without hiding anything. After everything had been explained clearly, only then did he look up into Yi Zichen's eyes. That's why I think he's dead. If you don't find him, then he's dead. Do you know that if he's alive, you want to see him? If he's dead, you want to see his corpse? Yi Zichen's voice was low. Let's not talk about that. Since you think he's dead, why didn't you tell me? If I didn't come looking for you, would you have never told me? About that, Suhu was speechless. In truth, he hadn't said anything because he didn't think there was a need. As long as the village didn't find him, Yi Zichen's people wouldn't go and kill him. In that case, it wouldn't make much of a difference whether he told them or not. What's more, there were many matters in the village that required him, the village chief, to personally attend to. Thus, he forgot about it. Why did you lie to me? Yi Zichen suddenly asked. The instant he heard this question, Suhu shot up from his chair. Brother Future, what are you saying? What did I lie to you? You didn't say anything about my guess about the fire monster's death. I just forgot about it. That's not really lying. You know that's not what I'm talking about, said Yi Zichen. I don't know what you're talking about. Suhu frowned. I have a clear conscience, Brother Future. All right. Yi Zichen nodded solemnly. Since you have a clear conscience, then I'll ask you properly. Why did you tell me that your village doesn't have any star-level experts? Don't forget, I'm here. How could I not know whether your village has any or not? Also, why did you tell me that the fire monster clearly had 4 guards, but you said there were only 3? My subordinates clearly told me that he has 4 star-level subordinates. Star-level. Suddenly, Suhu's eyebrows sank. Brother Future, the subordinates I'm talking about are not star-level. Not star-level. Yi Zichen was stunned. Yeah, I don't know what level they are, but they are definitely stronger than star-level, Suhu frowned. Our village doesn't have any star-level experts, and I can guarantee that I'm not lying. That's because those star-level experts are all dead. What happened? Yi Zichen sensed that something was wrong and frowned. He frowned and said, When the fire monster was still in my village, I asked a few seniors to assassinate him. I was nearby at that time. When a few Star Realm seniors from our village tried to assassinate him, 3 guards appeared beside him and killed the Star Realm seniors with 1 strike. Suhu's expression showed a hint of pain, perhaps regret. If it wasn't for his request, the 3 seniors wouldn't have died. Killed a star level in 1 strike? How many levels were they in? One of them was already at the 5th level. If that's the case, then the one who killed them had to be at least a star level or above. Why didn't you say so earlier? I thought Brother Future knew everything, Suhu said. Brother Future, please believe me. I've never lied to you. If I've lied to you, then I'll never be able to improve my cultivation again. Suhu's expression was sincere. Yi Zichen could tell from Suhu's gaze that he had indeed misunderstood him. But if what he said was true, and the Fire Elemental Commander had star-level guards, then why didn't he send those people to capture me? By say, or Qingyu, Brother Future, you can't find me for this? Suhu asked. Sort of. Yi Zichen nodded. Actually, I have some bad news for you. What news? The fire monster is still alive, Yi Zichen said. Not only is it alive, it even injured Qing Hui. It sent me a letter signed by Hui Xie. Chapter 2345. within the guest room of the city lord's manor. Suhu, who was sitting in the room, raised his eyebrows. During this time, Yi Zichen had been paying attention to his expression. From immediate changes in Suhu's eyes, it was clear that he did not understand Huasie's situation at all. Huasie, the fire monster's name? Suhu frowned. Nobody knew about the fire monster's life in the village. He had always called himself this sovereign. He could also release fire elemental energy. Thus, he was addressed as Lord in the village, while Suhu secretly called him Fire Monster. He was very unfamiliar with the name. As such, when Yi Zichen mentioned the signature, he was more surprised and confused. Future bro, are you sure that he is the Fire Monster? I'm sure. If Yi Zichen was still unable to confirm Huasie's identity after reading the letter, then he would be an idiot. Every sentence and every word in the letter stated that Huasie was the fire elemental commander. In the letter, although Huasie did not say it explicitly, he did vaguely mention the purge plan not long ago. He also clearly knew that Qing Hui was Yi Zichen's subordinate. The most obvious point was Yi Zichen was not someone who liked to look for trouble. He Jiminwei was one of the true enemies in the second universe, but he was already dead. The Virtual World Corporation had already started to control his family. According to the information given by Tianhai, it was only a matter of time before He Jiminwei was punished, and his family would also face unprecedented trouble. No matter how prosperous his family was in the past, intentionally harming millions of fellow human beings, this alone was enough to make their families fall into eternal damnation. He Jiminwei's suspicions could be put aside. Then, the only one left was the fire elemental commander. What's more, the letter was signed by Huasie, the whole family. Was it not clear? Suhu frowned deeply. He truly did not expect the fire monster to still be alive. Regardless of whether or not the fire monster caused trouble for their village, the fire monster's past torment had already caused him, as the village head, to be irreconcilable with the fire monster. He had already confirmed that the fire monster was still alive. Leave it to me. Suhu's expression was filled with unprecedented determination. Facing the fire monster's latent threat, Suhu, who had experienced the fire monster's torment, knew what it meant for him to still be alive. He absolutely could not let the fire monster live freely. There was another reason he was so resolute. He wanted to express his goodwill to Yi Zichen. He was right. It was a gesture of goodwill. The development of Chaotic City was frightening. Although he didn't want to believe it, he had to admit that in less than a year, Chaos City's existence had already shaken the surrounding villages. To put it bluntly, his position as the Overlord was unshakable. For the humans of the first universe, the planet Yi Zichen and company were on was a beginner's village in the Milky Way. To the natives of Universe 2, this planet had its own name, Terry Star. This was the edge of the land where the humans of Terry Star lived. For the entire planet, the interior of this planet was very chaotic. There was no clear dynasty established, and there was no clear ruler. Current situation, it was just like how the feudal princes of ancient China were placed side by side. The owner of a village or a city belonged to a feudal lord of a region. The appearance of Chaotic City. It broke the balance between the villages around them. More than half of the resources were owned by Chaos City. The surrounding villages were very envious, but they didn't have the power to compete. Rather than being annexed and unified in the later stages of development, it was better to express goodwill in advance. Even if it really was annexed in the future, they might be able to preserve some of their rights to develop independently. Suhu saw all this, and he had the right time and people. He had the choice of befriending Yi Zichen, so he naturally had to hold on to it. Yi Zichen didn't know that in that instant. Suhu had thought this far ahead, but he had to admit that Suhu was right. Chaos City had already begun to unify the surrounding villages. In the future, it was necessary to unify the region. No one could become a stumbling block to Chaos City's development. Submit, or be destroyed. This wasn't cruelty. For the sake of the future, Yi Zichen had to do this. He wasn't cruel to the natives. Did he have to wait until the armed forces of other planets reached the Milky Way galaxy? When they reached Earth, Yi Zichen would have to stand in front of them and talk about humanitarianism. Don't be stupid. When you did that, the other side would only snort in disdain at your words, then use absolute force to make you submit. They would plunder your planet's resources and turn the humans of your planet into their slaves. They would never be able to rise again. They would be branded as slaves. This was something he absolutely could not tolerate, nor could he allow to happen. Yi Zichen had left Earth to come to Blue River Planet for this. Su Ian had left Blue River Planet for this as well. They were the leaders of the Milky Way galaxy. The responsibility of guarding the galaxy and planets had already fallen onto their shoulders. When you knew nothing about the universe, you could ignore its mysteries and hidden dangers. But when you knew, no one could ignore it. If you were still human, if you were hot-blooded, using the second universe as a springboard, becoming the power that protected the Milky Way galaxy. This was something Yi Zichen had already resolved to do. No one could stop him. He wasn't afraid of the natives of the second universe saying that about him. He wasn't afraid of how vile and cruel his actions would be in the future. He was willing to bear this infamy, just for the future of the Milky Way galaxy. He had decided. He was determined. Su Hu, who sat across from Yi Zichen, had absolutely no idea that Yi Zichen had been thinking so much while he was forging, nor did he know what sort of heavy burden Yi Zichen carried on his shoulders. Just like that, the two of them sat in the guest room with heavy hearts. After a long period of silence, Yi Zichen broke the silence. Are you confident? You should know that last time you investigated, you didn't find anything. This time I'm confident. Su Hu's tone was unprecedentedly firm. Last time, we didn't have a clear target. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Our village doesn't have enough manpower at all. This time, I already have a general idea and direction. Oh, Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. I'm not sure if it's a preparation or not, but I'll do my best when I get back. Of course, it'd be best if you guys can help investigate as well. We'll help each other out. All right. Yi Zichen nodded solemnly and reached out his hand. Su Hu didn't quite understand. Foreigners weren't used to this sort of Chinese etiquette, much less the humans of the Outerverse. He reached out his hand in confusion. Yi Zichen grabbed his hand. We'll help each other out. Happy cooperation. Chapter 2346. At the gates of Chaos City, Yi Zichen watched as Su Hu hurriedly left with his subordinates. This time, they were cooperating. They didn't have any misunderstandings or suspicions. Their goal was to get rid of the potential threat, Fire Xie. City Lord, do you think they could do it? Han Qing frowned. He was in the know, but he didn't really trust the overall strength of Su Hu's village. Fire Xie, something that could heavily injure Qing Hui, who had the hollow organ. Su Hu's village didn't even have a star-level cultivator. We can't just rely on them. We need to start investigating as well. Yi Zichen pondered for a moment. Out is Qing Hui. He's very stable. His life isn't in danger. Good. When he heard this, Yi Zichen's worried heart slowly relaxed. Qing Hui's life wasn't in danger. That was enough. Once he wakes up, the investigation into Fire Xie would definitely make great progress. When that happens, I can tell Su Hu. Since this is a true cooperation, then there's no need to hide things from each other. City Lord, what should we do? Han Qing, who was following behind, asked. Yi Zichen said they needed to investigate, but he didn't say how. You should know better than me, right? Yi Zichen smiled. Han Qing and the others definitely had a direction to investigate. There was no doubt about that. The main reason he was so sure of this was because Su Hu had confirmed it. For what he said before he left, Yi Zichen could tell that he already had a general direction. Where did this direction come from? This was his understanding of this world. As natives, they definitely had a deeper understanding of the world than Yi Zichen, who came from the first universe. Yi Zichen believed that they had a certain understanding of the complicated background relationships of the various factions outside the village. With the flow of time, there would be history. With the existence of humans, there would be the writing of history. City Lord, I don't care what you're worried about. Fire Xie must be dealt with, Yi Zichen said with certainty. If you're worried, then there's no need. In the future, our city will always explore the center of the world. Contact with those people is inevitable, and conflict over resources is unavoidable. Let go of your worries and do it boldly. Even if the sky falls, I'll hold it up. This subordinate understands. Han Qing nodded solemnly. Han Qing nodded solemnly. He could already feel Yi Zichen's unwavering determination from his words. Since the city lord had spoken to this extent, then do it. If you need funds and manpower, you can ask Chicano for them. Just say that I agree to it. What I want is very simple. I want you to know everything about Hua Xie's village or city, even if it's an empire, and report back to me. This subordinate obeys. Han Qing received the order and left. Yi Zichen let out a silent sigh and looked at his city. It was finally about to begin. Regardless of whether it was for Yi Zichen or for the future of the Milky Way galaxy, this city and the surrounding villages, it was too small. It was time to start exploring the outside. Even if they didn't declare war, they had to at least understand what the outside world was like. Apart from this, Yi Zichen had something more important to do. Bailey, log in his Second Worlds forum. Should I publish it? Yes. Publish. The moment Yi Zichen finished, a post from the future appeared, and in less than 3 seconds, the post was marked in red. Name of the post, Chaos City is looking for technicians. It was a very simple post. In truth, this post had come to Yi Zichen's mind as he waited for Su Hu to arrive. His city needed technicians. The second universe had developed to this point. After hundreds of thousands of years, it was impossible for their civilization to still be in the caveman era. Even though what Yi Zichen and the others saw, they saw the same ancient buildings and villages. But in places they couldn't see, science must exist. Perhaps their science wasn't mainstream or perfect, but it definitely existed. This was inevitable if they wanted Chaos City to develop in the long term. If they wanted the people outside of Chaos City to have a place and the ability to compete with the many future natives in the city, the experts in the city were a part of it. Technology was also very important. Or rather, for the current Chaos City, it was very important. Breaking through from the domain level to the star level required several years, even decades. Breaking through from the star level to the cosmic level required more than 10 times the time it took to break through from the domain level to the star level. Universe level, needless to say, Chaos City didn't have that much time to contend with the entire universe through the strength of martial artists and controllers. Increasing the city's strength bit by bit was too slow for Yi Zichen. He needed to obtain everything he could in the shortest amount of time possible. In that case, he might as well start with technology. The first universe had perfect technology. Although their cultivation levels in the second universe weren't high, their scientific ideals couldn't be erased. What Yi Zichen needed to do was gather the researchers here. He needed to use Chaos City's current resources to develop technology, make it explode, and multiply Chunhai's military strength. When that happened, even if the people of Chaos City were weak, they could rely on advanced technology to make up for it. Simply put, the people outside were at the universe level, while the people of Chaos City were at the star level. But when they took out their swords, the people of Chaos City took out an E-grade laser gun. The cities outside were besieged by numbers. Chaos City was filled with cosmic energy cannons. The result was obvious. What's more, the universes would merge in the future. Establishing a technological base in Chaos City ahead of time wasn't a bad thing. Otherwise, when they merged, they'd be crushed by the universe's civilizations. No matter how well Chaos City developed, it would be useless. He knew very well that before the universes merged, he couldn't develop Chaos City into a first-rate power in the universe. Even the first-rate clans and corporations of the universe, they also had powerful experts and complete technological equipment. Technology they had to develop. In the future, Chaos City would have to leave this planet and explore and develop on other planets. When that happened, the problem would be straightforward. How would you go? Without a spaceship, how would you enter outer space? How would you enter outer space? How would you travel to other planets? No matter what level the second universe's civilization was, Chaos City civilization had to develop as quickly as possible. It would be even better if the civilization here was weaker. when they fought. Yi Zichen directly led the city's fleet and piloted a spaceship right in front of them. When that happened, it would be a spectacular scene. Technology had to develop. It couldn't be delayed. It had to happen. Chapter 2347. The advancement of the human realm, along with the development of the brain. At the celestial level, the human brain was already faster than a computer. This was a natural phenomenon in the universe. Any expert above the domain realm would have developed their brain to a very exaggerated degree. Even so, this didn't mean that anyone could do research. Everyone had their own specialties. The efficiency of the brain affected the speed at which one could think and react. However, this didn't mean that one could be proficient in everything with the development of the brain. Science needed to be studied carefully. It was a pipe dream to think that one could build an interstellar battleship just by relying on the development of the brain without any foundation. More importantly, science in the universe did not require the knowledge of physics and chemistry found in Earth's textbooks. If civilizations were divided into 10 levels for the entire human universe, Earth's current situation might only be level 0. 5. This might be a bit of a blow. However, he couldn't help but admit that Earth was too far behind. Yi Zichen searched for researchers in the forums in order to use the power of science and technology to help Chaotic City go further in the second universe. He also wanted to use this possibility to get to know some reliable people and bring them to the Milky Way. Of course, this was all for later. What he needed to do now was to recruit capable people and push forward the development of Chaotic City. How is it? Is there a lot of people? Yi Zichen asked after returning to the city lord's manor. Take a look for yourself. As he spoke, a beam of light shone into Yi Zichen's mind. The light slowly gathered and formed a 3D projection of the forums. Yi Zichen was the one who posted it. Below were the replies. 90 million plus. Yi Zichen counted the time. It hadn't even been 5 minutes since the post was posted. More than 90 million replies. It was truly a bit ridiculous. So many. It's actually all right. Bailey was much calmer than Yi Zichen. Let's look at the human population here. A single life star has 6 billion people. A small solar system has 30 life stars and over 1,000 large stars. A small universe has several hundred solar systems, and the large ones have tens of thousands or even 100,000. 90 million, that's not really much. That was true. But Yi Zichen was still shocked by the number of replies. Actually, what I'm more concerned about is your reputation in the forum, or rather, in this game. Bailey continued. These people's replies are all directed at you. I didn't expect you, who doesn't have much of a presence outside, to be so successful here. No wonder you chose to stay here. Can I take that as praise? Asked Yi Zichen. This is a compliment to you, and it's very sincere. You can take a look at these people's replies. From their words, you can feel their worship and reverence for you. I have to acknowledge you. After knowing you for so long, the best decision you made was to stay in the second universe. This place might not belong to you, but it's definitely the most suitable for you. Yi Zichen also smiled when he felt Bailey's seriousness. It was because of this that he had decided to come here after going through the purge plan. He glanced at the replies. First floor? I'm not seeing things, right? The future of the Milky Way galaxy. He actually made a post. Envious of scientific research? What big move is this again? Sign me up. I want to sign up as well. I won't look at the replies. In that short period of time, the number of replies on the post had already exceeded 100 million, and it was still increasing at a visible rate. The total number of replies did not stop changing. Yi Zichen told him to look through all of them, to filter them. His eyes and head were about to faint from exhaustion. Do you have any recommendations? I don't have any recommendations, Bailey shrugged. These replies are all using their online IDs. It's very good that they replied with their real names. Even if they use their real names, I can't be sure in a short period of time. I hope you can understand this. Confirming the identities of over 100 million users is quite a burden for me. Understandable. The optical computer provided all sorts of support services. If they were asked to calculate the probability or the resources needed, they were definitely the most trustworthy partners. However, when they needed to confirm certain things, such as the current identity verification, they also needed to check in the virtual network. Their checking efficiency was much faster than humans. However, they could not ignore the fact that they needed to check as well. Over 100 million users. Yi Zichen felt a headache just from hearing that, not to mention the fact that Bailey needed to check bit by bit. What I can give you right now are the applicants that remained after multiple screenings. Then, a 3D projection appeared in Yi Zichen's mind. There are a lot of replies, but most of them are just spamming. I went through 36 screenings. You can take a look at the ones that remained. Are these all the results of the screenings? A long line. There were at least 10,000 of them. Yes. Bailey nodded. These are the results I came up with after considering many aspects. There are quite a few applicants on the forums, but we also need to consider the distance between their planets. Right now, the ones here are all native planets of the Milky Way's newbie villages. As for whether it's yours or not, I don't know. Understood. As Yi Zichen looked at the applicants Bailey had found, a question suddenly popped up in his mind. How was he supposed to confirm their intentions? When he considered this question, Yi Zichen froze as if he'd been struck by lightning. How was he supposed to confirm? Which faction did they come from? What were their intentions? Were they sincere or had other motives? Yi Zichen didn't know. This is terrible. Yi Zichen patted his head, then couldn't help but sit down on a chair. Yi Zichen frowned as he added the people who left their character names and IDs. Almost instantly, Yi Zichen's private messages were filled with messages from the applicants. It really was necessary. Find an assistant from the first universe. Yi Zichen looked at the messages. Ding! Meng Luo is a little lowly. Requesting a video call. Hey, Meng Luo, why is she online? Yi Zichen accepted the video call and saw that Meng Luo and her team of 4 were all there. They seemed to be standing in. Hey, what's the meaning of this? You've forgotten about your old friends after becoming a local tycoon. Hua Jinro stuck her head in the middle of the video call and pointed at Yi Zichen's nose. Why aren't you coming out to greet me? Big Sister Hua came to visit. That's right. They were actually standing in front of the city lord's manor. Chapter 2348. Hey, so impressive. Look at our future god. Other people are still working here, but the future god city is already like this. Within the city lord manor, Hua Jinro said in an exaggerated tone. The eyes of the flame rat, Meng Luo, and Bai Se were also filled with envy and curiosity. It was fortunate that they weren't as exaggerated as Hua Jinro, causing Yi Zichen to feel a lot more comfortable. Yi Zichen silently followed behind them. Why did you guys come? Ever since the purge was carried out, no one who went through that disaster had returned to the second universe. Yet, Hua Jinro and company all appeared. You're not letting us come? Hua Jinro frowned, then directly sat on the stone mountain in the courtyard and scanned Yi Zichen with squinted eyes. You're afraid that we'll fight you for resources? No need to be afraid. Look at your city. We saw it when we came just now. No one can fight you for resources now. Don't think too much about the future. She's just like that, Bai Se explained gently. I know. From the first day, he came into contact with Hua Jinro. Yi Zichen felt that nothing she did would surprise him. She had a bold and unconstrained personality. She wasn't reserved like Bai Se, nor was she pure like Meng Luo. Yi Zichen naturally wouldn't get angry over those few words. He was truly curious as to why they came to the game. Why did you guys come back? Ever since the purge, practically no one has come here. Aren't you here? Hua Jinro squinted her eyes and smiled. We didn't want to come either, but you caused such a huge commotion on the forum, so we had no choice but to come. You guys know? Yi Zichen asked. How could we not? With that, Hua Jinro jumped down from the stone mountain and landed firmly. 100 million replies in 5 minutes. The Virtual World Corporation directly enhanced your post and made it popular. It's hard not to see it. Yi Zichen smiled. Actually, he didn't think that his post would have such a huge reaction, but since the Virtual World Corporation already did it, he didn't need his post to be promoted. He felt like Yi Zichen was pretty good. However, the problem with the people, it was really vexing for him. You're in trouble, right? Just as Yi Zichen's gaze turned gloomy, Hua Jinro walked over with a chuckle and hooked his arm around Yi Zichen's shoulder, as if they were good brothers. Do you not know how to choose? Is it because there are too many people applying and you don't know who to choose? Are you suspicious of their purpose in coming here? As she spoke, Hua Jinro even ran in front of Meng Luo and intentionally mimicked Yi Zichen. What should we do? Do I want these people? This is so annoying. Who do we need? That was Hua Jinro's personality. Yi Zichen could understand that she would occasionally tease others. What he didn't expect was, yeah, who do you need? Meng Luo nodded in agreement with Hua Jinro. She frowned and pouted, looking like she was in deep thought. Hey, that's enough. Bai Sei covered his face. Yi Zichen walked up and gently patted Meng Luo on the head. Io, future god, why did you hit me? Why did you start to learn bad things from Hua Jinro? Meng Luo, you're a cute lowly, Yi Zichen said. So am I, Meng Luo said seriously. Yi Zichen couldn't get angry when he saw Meng Luo's cute look. He rubbed her head, then looked at Hua Jinro, who was on the side. Say it. What exactly do you want? This girl, Yi Zichen truly admired her if she intentionally came to the second universe to tease him. However, Yi Zichen was rather surprised that she actually knew what he was thinking. Am I right just now? Hua Jinro asked. Although I don't want to admit it, you're right. Yi Zichen let out a long sigh and shrugged. Yi Zichen let out a long sigh, then shrugged. That's the problem. There are a lot of people applying, but we don't know much about them. What's more, it'll be very troublesome to check their backgrounds. This didn't seem like a real job interview. If it was a company that needed people to work for the position, then it was possible to send people to investigate whether the person was a spy sent by a rival company. The most direct difference between Yi Zichen and a company was that he was here. He belonged to the second universe. Everything was blank when he came from the first universe to the second universe. The second universe didn't have a complete information network like the first universe. It would be very troublesome to investigate. He truly felt a headache because of this. At this moment, Hua Jinro suddenly grinned. Meng Luo and the others also smiled. What? Yi Zichen frowned. That's why I came. Hua Jinro chuckled with a hint of pride. Hua Jinro grinned and looked a little proud. Big sis, when I saw your post, I knew that you would definitely have this problem. That's why I called our small group over to help you solve your problem. How? Of course it's to get to the root of the problem. Hua Jinro said. You need technicians, right? Yes. Do you trust us? Of course. Yi Zichen could be said to have gone through thick and thin with them, so he would definitely trust them. Could it be that they know how to do it? Yi Zichen looked towards Bai Sei, Meng Luo, and the Flame Rat. None of them seemed like they could do scientific research. Then I have no choice but to introduce you to someone. Hua Jinro smiled mysteriously and pointed behind her. Soon after, her entire body froze. Her eyes were as big as copper bells as she stared blankly at Bai Sei and the rest. Where's Old Meng? Crap! Old Meng was left outside. Hua Jinro patted her head, then hurried out. Before she left, she shouted towards Yi Zichen. Wait for me, I'll be quick. Yi Zichen looked at Meng Luo and company in confusion. Bai Sei smiled towards him, while Meng Luo and the Flame Rat also smiled. What is she doing? Yi Zichen was truly confused by Bai Sei's frantic behavior. You'll know later, Bai Sei's tone and voice were always so gentle. You'll definitely be very satisfied. Is that so? Yi Zichen didn't believe the words of others, but he felt that Bai Sei's words were trustworthy. She was the most reliable out of the four of them. Approximately half an hour later, Hua Jinro, who was panting, ran back from outside. Behind her was a middle-aged man who wore a simple blue robe and had bright silver hair. I'm so tired. Hua Jinro panted heavily and pointed at the man behind her. Let me introduce him to you. Meng Tai, the former chief technical engineer of the Virtual World Corporation. Chapter 2349. Virtual World Corporation. Technology, Chief Engineer. Yi Zichen, who stood in the room, was completely shocked as he looked at the kind, middle-aged man in front of him. Seriously, it wasn't that Yi Zichen judged people based on their appearances. This person was indeed very average, and there was nothing about him that was worth paying attention to. If he was placed on the streets of Blue River, people definitely wouldn't think that he was the chief engineer of the Virtual World Corporation. At most, he would be a domain-level resident of Blue River. The Virtual World Corporation started with technology. Currently, there were countless lords and sovereigns within the Virtual World Corporation, and their martial prowess was also very intimidating. However, anyone who understood the history of the first universe would know that the Virtual World Corporation used technology to slowly gain a foothold in the universe. Towards the end, the head of the corporation, Wen Li, broke through to the supreme level. The Virtual World Corporation instantly became the leader of the 8 giants, and even the Association of Supremes had to avoid them. This was not because of Wen Li's strength, which was unshakable. In the human universe, Supremes were very rare, but they were not non-existent. The true reason why the Virtual World Corporation was at the top was because of their technology. In the entire first universe, the Virtual World Corporation had the most authority in technology, as well as the highest position in the field of science. At that moment, Hua Jinro actually said that the somewhat dispirited, bearded uncle in front of him was actually the Virtual World Corporation's chief engineer. Such a big shot in scientific research was standing right in front of him. It was impossible for Yi Zichen to maintain his calm. Not to mention him, any powerhouse in the universe would not be able to act high and mighty in front of this person. Who is he? The Virtual World Corporation's chief engineer of technology. He controlled the most advanced scientific power in the entire universe, and was the leader of humanity's scientific field in the first universe. How is it? Scared now? Hua Jinro smiled, while her eyes were filled with pride. I'm telling you, Old Meng has been the chief engineer of the Virtual World Corporation for nearly 100,000 years. When it comes to scientific research, he definitely wouldn't dare to say that he's number 2. HLO. Yi Zichen nodded carefully. No need to be so reserved. Meng Tai was as amiable as his face. He smiled in order to lessen the burden in Yi Zichen's heart, then explained. I'm actually just a deputy. It's not as exaggerated as the girl said. Elder Meng, what do you mean? Hua Jianro frowned and walked over. Aren't both chief engineers and deputy chief engineers? Why are you always saying deputy? In my heart, you are the chief engineer. No, I'm the deputy. For some reason, Meng Tai, who had been very gentle from the start to the end, was very persistent when he mentioned the captain and vice captain. To him, this was like an obsession that no one could change. Looking at Meng Tai's stubborn expression, Hua Jinro shrugged lightly and did not argue with him. Then he turned to face Yi Zichen. Don't you need to do scientific research? No one is more suitable than Old Meng. If you need him, you can keep him here. Is this okay? Regardless of whether it was the main or deputy, those who came from the Virtual World Group, even if they were just researchers, were highly sought after in the universe. Not to mention someone who could become a deputy chief engineer. If such an almighty being were to stay with him, Yi Zichen was truly a bit afraid that his tiny temple wouldn't be able to contain such a great Buddha. Why not? Instead, Meng Tai spoke up before Hua Jinro could speak. I've been idle for too long. I've been kept at home by the girl's family every day without doing anything, so I might as well find something to do. I'm rather interested in the second universe. It's rather interesting to explore and research in a world that's still in its infancy. Are you serious? Yi Zichen was shocked. Of course, Meng Tai nodded. As long as you want me to stay, then I'm willing to try here. Of course I'm willing. Anyone who wasn't willing would be an idiot. However, Yi Zichen was rather confused. Why would the Virtual World Group let a research powerhouse like him leave? Even if he left, I'm sure that the other powerhouses would extend an olive branch to him, but he just happened to come to the second universe. All right, then where's my research lab? About this, doing scientific research was something that Yi Zichen had thought of on the spur of the moment. He didn't build a research lab in the city, mainly because he didn't know where to start. Meng Tai could also see Yi Zichen's dilemma. Yi Zichen roughly understood Yi Zichen's dilemma, then nodded. I understand, then I'll do it myself. Of course, I'll need you to make things easier for me. Of course. With that, Yi Zichen called Chicano over. He told Meng Tai to contact Chicano if anything happened. Chicano was more familiar with the resources of the city then Yi Zichen. Then Meng Tai left with Chicano. Yi Zichen was still immersed in shock. After a long while, he looked at Hua Jinro with a serious expression and hugged her tightly. "Thank you." Hua Jinro blushed for some reason, then pursed her lips and took half a step back. "What's there to be courteous about? You're by Say's and my savior, so just treat it as us returning the favor. This favor is too heavy." At the start, Yi Zichen just wanted to find some people who knew a bit about technology and start from scratch in Chaos City. Who would have thought that Hua Jinro would bring him a bomb? The deputy chief engineer of the Virtual Moment Corporation. With the existence of such a powerhouse, the efficiency of Chaos City's research would increase by several hundred times. "What do you mean? My and Lil White's lives aren't worth this?" Hua Jinro twitched her mouth. "Old Meng's understanding of research and technology are at the top of the universe. With him, your city's research will definitely undergo a qualitative change. What's more, he knows a lot of researchers. If you don't know how to select them, just leave it to him." "All right." Yi Zichen nodded, then spoke up again. "I have a question. Since he's the deputy chief engineer of the Virtual World Corporation, then why did he come here? Also, it seems like he owes me and Lil White's family a favor." Hua Jinro shrugged. "He no longer belongs to the Virtual World Corporation. As for why he left, we don't know. Our seniors didn't let us ask either. Since then, he's been living on our planet. Since he has a good personality, we've been calling each other brothers." "Calling each other brothers. You're really something." He doesn't even feel restrained with the deputy chief engineer of the Virtual World Corporation. Perhaps this is the confidence of second-generation heirs. Sometimes, one's background can really affect a person's personality. Just like that. Even if Meng Tai did not care about this, not many people would dare to disregard the etiquette of juniors and address him as a brother after learning Meng Tai's title. Even if Meng Tai did not care about this, not many people would dare to do so. At that moment, Hua Jinro walked up and hooked her arm around Yi Zichen's shoulder. "AI, future, tell me, what do you want to do with your research here? Do you want to shock the world after the universe fuses?" Chapter 2350. He wasn't afraid of them having a background. He was only afraid of them having a background and being smart. Hua Jinro called Meng Tai over to help Yi Zichen solve his problem. Now, she saw through his thoughts and realized that all of this was for the fusion of the universes. Fortunately, they were friends. If He Jiminwei was like Hua Jinro, Yi Zichen had no confidence in beating him. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Hua Jinro sat down on a chair in the room, while the others also sat down. "My dad told me. The fusion of the second universe will have a huge impact on the first universe. After the fusion, resources will be guaranteed, but the population will explode." Yi Zichen frowned, then looked at Hua Jinro with a strange gaze. The question she was asking now felt a little incoherent. However, her words had brought up a very important point: the problem of population. In today's human universe, the number of living beings of the human race, including the vassal races, was already somewhat saturated in terms of population. It could be seen from the Blue River planet. Whether it was the construction inside the city or the residences in the city, they were all very crowded. Whether it was suitable for human life or not, there were traces of human existence. Not long ago, there was news about the Blue River planet. They were going to build residences in the ocean. From this, it could be seen that the population of the human planet had already exceeded the limit of what the planet could sustain. If the second universe fused, the consequences of the collision of universes was not something someone at Yi Zichen's level could understand. In terms of population, even if the second universe's population was half of the first universe's, the planet would not allow them to enter. An explosion in population was inevitable. Yes, this is a very serious problem. Bai Sei also expressed her opinion. It was rare for Bai Sei to express her opinion. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry under the veil. "My father has mentioned this to me as well. He said that there are two possible outcomes to the fusion of the universe. The first is that the fusion of planets will collide and the star field of the galaxy will expand. The second is that the cosmic nation will expand, and the second is that the planet's surface area will expand. There's another possibility. It's the collision and fusion. The area will remain the same, but the resources will be combined. That way, the people of the second universe will all be placed on the already full planets. In order to have a place to live, they will start a war. Hua Jinro concluded, there will definitely be a war within our human race. It will be a war between the first universe and the second universe. At that time, we will be attacked from both sides. There will be foreign races on the outside and the humans of the second universe on the inside. If we aren't careful, the human race will suffer a fatal blow. Really? From Meng Luo's and the Flame Rat's expressions, it was obvious that they had no idea what was going on. The elders in the family did not mention these possibilities to them. That's still a better plan. There are worse ones. Hua Jinro pursed her lips and narrowed her eyes. What I'm afraid of is that after the fusion, the foreign races of the first universe will fuse with the human race through the second universe. At that time, we will truly be in despair. Asterisk gulp, asterisk. Yi Zichen clenched his hands tightly. Bai Sei and Hua Jinro looked worried. Both of their clans were the top clans in the universe, so they definitely had more information than other clans. Since the two of them had revealed these possibilities, this meant that it could really happen. Belle, is what they said possible? It's possible, Belle replied. When they mentioned this possibility, I already did some calculations. There is a 90% chance that the human race's population will explode, and a 100% chance that the humans of the two universes will start a war. There's an 80% chance that there are other races among them. This is truly a terrible outcome. Indeed, the human race might be wiped out in the end, but the outcome is worth the risk. Suddenly, Bailey opened his mouth again. You might not know, but the master of the Milky Way mentioned a possibility to me a long time ago. That is, the reason why the second universe was born is because the first universe is about to be destroyed. Destroyed? The destruction of the universe? The first universe has existed for far too long, so long that it is very hard to trace back to its beginning. There's nothing that can last forever. At the very beginning, we, the machine race, thought that stars were eternal. However, as time passed and our race's technology developed, we discovered that stars were not eternal. We once thought that the galaxy was the largest, but later on, we discovered a universe that included galaxies, and then we saw countless universes coexisting with each other. We defined the universe as a cosmic kingdom, and the one that possesses all of this is called the first universe of the human race. All of this sounded so familiar. Just like Earth in the past, they didn't know anything and only knew a little bit about the universe. To put it in the most direct way, someone had once mentioned the theory of aliens, but no one had actually seen one. Yi Zichen saw it. Now, not only did he see it, he even went to other planets and found out how vast the universe was. He knew all of it existed. The technology of the first universe was very advanced, but that didn't mean that humans knew everything. The appearance of the second universe proved that the first universe was about to be destroyed. That was not impossible. So, for the continuation of the first universe, just stake it all on this? Yi Zichen let out a long sigh. Isn't pushing the entire human race in front of the abyss too much for such a minuscule chance? Let the second universe fuse with the first universe. Wait. Suddenly, Yi Zichen frowned as a possibility appeared in his mind. When humans die without any natural or man-made disasters, they still die because their lifespan is up. The destruction of a star, in the end, is because their lifespan is up. The destruction of a universe. It was the same. The fact that the master of the Milky Way mentioned this possibility meant that he believed that the first universe did not have enough lifespan, or that he had already found some clues. Insufficient lifespan. Even if he used miraculous pills to increase his lifespan by 100 years, it was definitely not a long-term solution. Flamesia. When he was about to die, he was not looking for a spiritual item to maintain his body, because he knew that it was not a long-term solution. Furthermore, the effects were obvious, so he was looking for a suitable vessel. The current situation was the first universe versus the second universe. Could it be this was actually the vessel that the master of the Milky Way and the others found for the first universe, and a new place for all of humanity to live. It was not the second universe fusing with the first universe. It was the first universe fusing with the second universe, and all of the humans of the first universe moving into the second universe. The migration of all of humanity. Thus, continuation. Chapter 23:51. Yi Zichen, who stood in the room, clenched his fists. He didn't know whether he had truly seen through the thoughts of the big shots, but his heart was in turmoil. If that's the case, putting all of my energy into the second universe is definitely the wisest decision. Before the fusion, nobody knew what the result of the fusion would be, nor did they know how it would be done. Would everything in the first universe appear in the second universe? All of this was unknown. However, what was certain was that everything you have in the second universe would not be for naught. Just as Yi Zichen's heart was filled with shock, Hua Jinro and company also discussed the matter. From their expressions, it could be seen that Hua Jinro and Bai Sei's family placed a lot of importance on the second universe. Right now, my family has already invested more than half of the power and funds here. Hua Jinro shrugged. I don't know why they did this, but none of the stubborn elders in the clan refused. My family too, Bai Sei replied. My family too. The flame rat scratched its head. And said, a lot of people have entered the second universe. My dad even told me to develop well here. The second generations of the universe discussed amongst themselves. Yi Zichen also frowned. Then, Hua Jinro walked over. We're going to follow you from now on. Huh? Yi Zichen was shocked by what she said. Hua Jinro truly did whatever she wanted. Everything she said was so incoherent that no one could understand what she was trying to do. What are you saying? I said, we're going to follow you from now on. Hua Jinro frowned. What? You don't want us? I don't care if you want us or not. We're going to follow you and not leave. Yeah, we're not leaving. Meng Luo sat down on the floor. Meng Luo sat on the ground as well. She actually had no idea what everyone was talking about. They were just making a fuss. Then, what did Nebula say? Disbanded? Hua Jinro shrugged and pointed at their shoulders. We don't even have our armbands anymore, so we disbanded a long time ago. We disbanded after the purge. Right now, we could be said to be alone. Yi Zichen understood, but he wasn't too surprised. The purge was a huge blow to their village. After that, no one went to the second universe. Many people canceled their accounts to cut off their thoughts of staying here. The power of all parties in the village shrank greatly. Actually, disbanding was expected. Take Yi Zichen, for example. At first, the Upheaval Alliance didn't have many members, and everything they did was develop in the second universe. Even if the people from the first universe didn't come here, it wouldn't have any impact on him. Don't just stand there. Are you accepting it or not? Hua Jinro asked. Yes. Yi Zichen smiled wryly. Just stay here properly from now on. Then why don't you invite us? All right. With that, Yi Zichen extended an invitation to Hua Jinro and company. The moment he sent out the invitation, the entire City Lord Manor was dumbfounded. Hua Jinro, the Flame Rat, and Bai Sei stared intently at Yi Zichen's face. Meng Luo had already accepted the invitation and joined the Upheaval Alliance. There are so few people here, Meng Luo muttered. You. Hua Jinro and the others couldn't be as naive and innocent as Meng Luo. She pointed at Yi Zichen, then glanced at the invitation. The Upheaval Alliance. It was a faction that shocked the entire universe. Although his appearance was short-lived, it still left an indelible mark in the hearts of the crowd. At the time, some people suspected this was a faction established by 3 Overlord-level experts. But now, Yi Zichen was inviting them. F*CK, are you a Overlord-level expert? Hua Jinro grabbed Yi Zichen by the shoulder and shook him back and forth. If you're an Overlord-level expert, why did you have to be so greedy? Why didn't you say so earlier? Huh? Yi Zichen was dumbfounded. Overlord-level expert? What the hell? He hadn't even reached the cosmic system level yet. How could he be an Overlord-level expert? You're not an Overlord-level expert? Before long, Hua Jinro sensed that something was wrong with Yi Zichen's gaze. You're really not an Overlord-level expert? What's wrong with you? Let's go in or not? Let's go in. Before long, Bai Sei and the others entered the Upheaval Alliance. Hua Jianro looked at the list of members and narrowed her eyes. Since Yi Zichen wasn't an Overlord-level expert, it was entirely possible that the other three were Overlord-level experts. Poor Bei Yu had no idea that she, who hadn't even reached the domain level, had already become an Overlord-level expert. Are you going to stay here forever? When he saw them enter the Upheaval Alliance, Yi Zichen instinctively asked. That's right. Hua Jinro nodded. Our family demanded that we come, so we had no choice. It's not just us, right? Just now, that guy from the Steel family, the Hornet Valley, and even a returning Windblade all appeared. They're all preparing to return. Yi Zichen opened up the virtual network. There was a lot of news in their Milky Way Galaxy chat group. A few people who hadn't appeared in a long time now popped up, crying about their superiors' orders to return to the second universe. Among them, the returning Windblades crying was the loudest. He sent a crying emoji in the group, and every time he sent a message, it filled the screen. The second universe is definitely a treasure trove, said Bailey, who was standing on Yi Zichen's shoulder. Yi Zichen nodded silently. Yi Zichen knew this even without Bailey telling him. If it weren't for the treasure, why would these major figures throw everything they had into this place? However, he still didn't see anyone in the group. Even Tian Hai, who used to be rather active in the group, didn't see them. The people of the first universe had returned. In truth, this didn't affect Yi Zichen too much. Regardless of whether they were here to fight or develop, Chaos City's existence had already established his unshakable position. Now, the wisest choice was to join him. However, Yi Zichen absolutely wouldn't accept just anyone. He'd accepted Meng Luo and the others because they were on good terms. As for the others, difficult. If anyone in the Milky Way group asked him to join Chaos City, Yi Zichen would have to think it over. He wouldn't just accept them like he'd done with Meng Luo and the others. Your Excellency. At that moment, Chicano rushed over. When he saw everyone in the room, Yi Zichen sensed that he had something to report. What is it? The second-generation Saiyans were still discussing whether or not to go out and hunt vicious beasts. Yi Zichen stepped out of the room and looked at Chicano. Qing Hui woke up. He said that he wanted to see you. He has something to report. Chapter 2352. Within the infirmary of the city, Lord's Manor. The heavily injured and unconscious Qing Hui had already woken up. He sat on the bed in the room and absorbed the energy of the universe to help him recover. Yi Zichen arrived after receiving Chicano's report. Uncle Qing, you're so hard-working. Yi Zichen didn't mention his heavy injuries at all. Since Qing Hui had already woken up, it would be a bit of a burden to talk about it. City Lord. Qing Hui raised his hand. Yi Zichen reached out and pressed it down. Forget about the formalities. Chicano said he had something to talk to me about. I wonder what it is about. Fire Xie. Yi Zichen thought to himself, I knew it. When he came, he guessed that Qing Hui wanted to talk to him about Hua Xie. What he was more concerned about now was indeed about Hua Xie. Uncle Qing, do tell. An hour later. Yi Zichen and Chicano left the room. Chicano's expression was solemn. Ever since Qing Hui told him about Fire Xie, his frown hadn't eased. It's very serious. What's with that expression? Yi Zichen pursed his lips. How's Senior Meng Tai? Our city has limited resources. We don't have a lot of the materials Meng Tai needs, Chicano replied. But he mentioned that the R&D department has already started construction. Where do you think we have the materials he needs? Inside, Chicano pointed into the distance. We're still in the outskirts. There's too little energy here. This subordinate guesses that there are even more resources stored inside. How are your arrangements going? I've already set up a merchant caravan for trade. I was just about to ask you for permission. I agreed. Obtaining resources didn't mean that plundering was a must. Trade was also a very good way. There were plenty of resources inside Chaos City. Actually, they weren't needed for the time being. Rather than keeping them here, it was better to increase their value. I'll be leaving the city for a while. I'll leave everything in the city to you. City Lord, I'm going to take a look. Yi Zichen smiled. Chicano's gaze instantly darkened. City Lord, isn't this a bit too risky? Qing Hui has already made it very clear. You should be well aware of the situation with Huixia. If you go to his place now, I don't recommend it, Chicano said with a frown. Who said I was going to his place? Yi Zichen twisted his neck and looked up at the sky. There are so many cities. Can I go to other cities to take a look? Besides, the surrounding dire beasts are no longer suitable for me to develop. I really want to see what the inside of this planet is like. In a flash, 5 days passed, a few hundred miles away from Chaotic City. The beasts here were of a much higher realm than those outside Chaos City. In a forest of vicious beasts. This forest area was vast, and there were many vicious beasts within. The trees in the forest were dense, and if one wasn't extremely familiar with the terrain here, even if they didn't die at the hands of the vicious beasts, they would lose their way and be trapped to death. Quick, chase it! In the lush forest, a group of 5, consisting of 3 men and 2 women, was traversing through the forest. These people were all armed and wearing armor. In front of them was an earth dragon. The earth dragon's back was covered in blood as it fled in panic. You still want to run? At that moment, the middle-aged man in the group chopped down at the earth dragon with all his might. The earth dragon's eyes were filled with terror. It waved its tail and roared unwillingly. Roar! The light from the blade devoured it, and the earth dragon's life faded away. Uncle Lou, you're really something, a relatively young man in the group shouted. The others also hurried over. The young man from before even knelt in front of the earth dragon's corpse and prayed to the gods. Gods, drop some good treasures. Just as he was about to touch it, the beauty behind him suddenly grabbed his ear. You still want to touch it? You've already blackmailed it so many times. You still want to touch it? Sis, the young man frowned. If they didn't drop any treasures before, what could I do? Move to the side, I'll touch it. The beauty kicked the young man away. The young man, who was kicked to the ground, twitched his mouth as he looked at the equally excited beauty. Didn't you just want to touch it? You're still calling me blackmailed? Then I'll let you touch it. Let's see what you'll do when you can't find anything. He retreated half a meter away unwillingly. The beauty placed her hand on the earth dragon's head. Half a minute passed. How could it be? The beauty frowned and muttered. The young man behind her hurriedly opened his mouth and laughed. Ha ha, calling me blackmailed? Aren't you the same? I've already told you, it's not that I'm blackmailed. It's just that there aren't many treasures to begin with. The chances of getting a God-bestowed equipment is very small. Shut up. The beauty raged. The young man was so scared that he didn't dare to speak. Instead, the middle-aged man in the group took a few steps forward. All right, Tianyin, if you don't have it, then so be it. Dad, the beauty frowned and waved her hand forcefully. I just want a suitable weapon. The mercenary assessment is coming soon, and I don't even have a suitable weapon. It's not easy to get a God-bestowed weapon. If there's no other way, we'll go to the equipment store to buy one. The middle-aged man touched the beauty's head. I don't want it. The beauty sat on the ground angrily. The equipment in the equipment store is so bad. I just want a God-bestowed one. You. The middle-aged man sighed dotingly and touched the beauty's head again. Then let's continue to hunt. Dad will definitely get you a God-bestowed weapon before the assessment. All right, Dad dotes on me the most. The beauty giggled and hugged the middle-aged man's arm. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with warmth as he spoke to the 2 people behind him. Peel off the skin. The skin of a level 7 earth dragon can be sold for a good price in the equipment store. Yes. The other 2 people in the group went to peel the skin. The middle-aged man also looked around. His daughter was currently at level 7 domain. The most suitable weapon for her was a level 7 domain weapon. If it was possible to get a level 7 silver domain weapon, his daughter would definitely be very satisfied. Even if it was a level 7 savage beast, it wasn't that easy to kill. Even though he was at the star rank now, it was still fine if he encountered a level 7 beast that was alone. However, if there were more of them, even if there were 3 or more, it would be very troublesome to deal with them. Sha sha sha. Dad, can you hear anything? A middle-aged man who looked similar to the middle-aged man walked over and frowned as he looked into the depths of the forest. The middle-aged man also frowned when he heard this. Very quickly, his eyes instantly turned cold. Run! The 2 people who were cleaning up the earth dragon's corpse were stunned for a moment. Boss, the skin is not. Quickly run. The middle-aged man shouted anxiously. Something's wrong. Just now, I felt an inexplicable chill down my spine. The sound coming from the forest is not right. Chapter 2353. Retreat. Retreat. The two people who were dissecting the materials retreated without any hesitation. They had followed the middle-aged man for a long time. Professional hunter teams had a very high casualty rate. The reason why the two of them were able to survive for so many years was because they followed this middle-aged man and trusted his instincts. Dad, what's wrong? Don't worry about it. Tianyin, Lil Sheng followed them. The middle-aged man pushed the two youngsters out. Unfortunately, just as the two youngsters were at a loss of what to do, a few lions with flame-colored fur on their heads suddenly ran out of the forest. Oh no! The middle-aged man couldn't help but sigh when he saw the lions. Flaming lions. Level 9 domain beasts. These lions were already very strong, and they had the natural ability to release flames. Even star-level experts would have a hard time dealing with them. He was thinking, don't ever run into more than 3 earth dragons. This time, there were several 9th-tier blazing lions. Flaming lions. The other two adults were also shocked. Why did these guys come to the outskirts of the forest? Shouldn't they live inside? Boss, what should we do? Fight. Lions had a very strong desire to hunt. If they chose to run when facing them, they would definitely become their food. If they fought them, there might even be a sliver of a chance of survival. The lions in front of them didn't seem to be adults. They were just 3 cubs, so there was definitely a difference in strength between them and adult flaming lions. They were probably only around level 8 domain. As for them, disregarding the two youngsters, his two subordinates were both at level 9 domain. It wasn't impossible for the 3 of them to deal with the cubs. The moment the middle-aged man said that, the other 2 already took their positions. Working together for a long time made them very tacit. Even without speaking, they could tell each other's intentions with a single look. Attack! The 3 of them instantly shot out. At that moment, deep within the forest, an adult flaming lion carried a youngster on its back. Beside the lion were 2 other adult lions, each of which carried 2 people. What are you going to do in the future? Tell me the truth. Did you do it on purpose? The familiar tone let them know that she was Hua Jinro. She and Bai Sei sat on the same lion, while the flame rat and Meng Luo sat on the other side. As for Yi Zichen, under his crotch was the only male lion. This was already the 5th day since they left Chaos City and the 4th day since they entered the fearsome beast forest. They followed the route Qing Hui had given them. After passing through the vicious beast forest, they could see the gathering place of the natives. They had indeed come, but they had gotten lost on the way. These lions, they were mounts that Yi Zichen had subdued. Without them, they might have died in the forest. It's none of my business. Did I ask you to come with me? You were the one who insisted on bringing them along. I told you to stay in Chaotic City. Yi Zichen frowned. I was worried about you, so I specially protected you. Hua Jianro glared at him. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Sister, I'm Xing Chun, and you're in your domain. Who's protecting who? To think that Hua Jianro could say something like that shamelessly. After all, Yi Zichen hadn't saved her many times along the way. Since he encountered this beast, he wanted to take a look at it. If she couldn't beat him, she would shout, and Yi Zichen would have to rush over to save her. If he saved the damsel in distress, she would have to marry him. Hua Jinro would have to marry him at least 20 times. TSK, I don't care. Tell me what to do now. We can't get out, and we can't go back either. Hua Jinro frowned and threw a tantrum. Hua Jinro frowned and threw a tantrum. I can't stay here anymore. I don't like the smell here at all. Hua Jinro had said the same thing at least 50 times. She would practically say it a few times a day. Yi Zichen looked around without replying to her. This vicious beast forest was truly too big, and they were unable to tell which direction they were going. If this continued, then not only would Hua Jinro break down, even Yi Zichen would break down. Just hold on a bit longer, Bai Sei comforted. Bai Sei tried to comfort Gu Shijiao. Right at that moment, the mounts of the few people looked as if their butts had been set on fire. They roared and charged forward, causing the people who were sitting on them to almost fall off. F***, what are you guys doing? I'm angry. Hua Jinro laid on the lion's head and shouted. However, the lions ignored them and continued to run forward. Roar! The roar of the flaming lion echoed through the forest. The expressions of the three people who were about to attack the lion cubs also darkened when they heard the roar. Whatever. Hurry up and deal with them. Yi Zichen swung the weapon in his hand towards the lion cubs. However, before the middle-aged man could do anything, the male lion that Yi Zichen was sitting on leaped out and stomped the middle-aged man onto the ground with a ferocious look in its eyes. Roared that, "Boss! Uncle Lu!" The other people in the team also shouted. Yi Zichen, who sat on the lion's back, quickly understood what was going on, then slapped the lion's head. Behave. The lion moved its claws off the middle-aged man angrily. Even so, the middle-aged man's chest was still broken, and two of his bones might have been broken. Then, the lion ran in front of the lion cubs and rubbed its head against them, then licked their fur. Are you guys all right? Yi Zichen leaped down from the lion and walked in front of the middle-aged man. Little brother, thank you for saving our lives. The middle-aged man cupped his hands, then gasped, perhaps because it affected his wounds. No worries. Yi Zichen waved towards him. The young man in the team gulped as he looked at the lion family in front of him, then looked at Yi Zichen's group with eyes filled with admiration. Big bro, are they your mounts? Yeah. Yi Zichen nodded. How did you train them? These flaming lions are all very proud. Only the mayor's house has one in our town. The admiration in the young man's eyes increased. Yi Zichen rubbed his nose. Tame? He didn't tame them. He just beat them. Beat them until they yielded, and the lions lowered their heads and let him up. Why should I tell you? The young man's older sister pulled the young man back and looked at Yi Zichen in embarrassment. Sorry, my cousin is very curious about everything. We didn't intentionally ask about your privacy. Just what is your name? Wow, sis. The young man looked at his older sister in shock. He even doubted his own eyes. His older sister actually revealed such an expression. Shut up. The beauty slapped the young man's head, then revealed a gentle expression as she rubbed her hands together shyly. Yi Zichen looked at the team in front of him in shock. Then his eyes brightened. The future. Let me ask you guys. You guys should know how to get out, right? Can you bring us along? Chapter 2354. The Group of 10. The Flaming Lions had been the right choice. Without them, Yi Zichen really didn't know when they'd be able to leave the forest. Although the ferocious beasts in the forest were only average in strength, they posed no threat to Yi Zichen. But if they kept going in circles, they'd break down. Now that they'd run into the middle-aged man, Yi Zichen's group finally made it out of the forest. Brother, you're not a local, are you? Asked the middle-aged man. He'd already treated his wounds. His broken bones couldn't heal, so he'd have to wait until they got back to town. Fortunately, he was a star-level cultivator, so he could absorb a certain amount of cosmic energy to numb his pain. Yi Zichen didn't try to hide it. That's right. I knew it, laughed the middle-aged man. There aren't any star-level cultivators as young as you in the surrounding towns. Right, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Lu Shuiheng. Future little brother, you truly are a young hero. You broke through to the star level at such a young age. I'm so envious, praised Lu Shuiheng. It's all right. There was always someone better than you out there. Yi Zichen wasn't going to get complacent just because he'd broken through to the star level. At his age, there were plenty of people who could break through to the star level. Just because he hadn't seen them didn't mean they didn't exist. In other words, when he was in Chaos City, there were no more than 30 star-level experts in the surrounding villages. How long had it been? Lu Shuiheng was a star-level expert, and his daughter, Lu Tianyin, was a level 7 domain expert. That kind of talent was unheard of in Chaos City. Future little brother, you're so humble, laughed Lu Shuiheng. If only my daughter was half as humble as you. You've only just broken through to level 7 domain, yet you're already yelling about being invincible. Ha ha ha. Dad. Lu Tianyin bit her lips and stamped her feet in embarrassment. Seeing his daughter's expression, Lu Shuiheng laughed again. During this time, Lu Tianyin had been paying attention to Yi Zichen's expression. When she saw that he didn't care at all, she lowered her head in disappointment. Ha ha ha, I'll stop. Lu Shuiheng laughed. Yi Zichen nodded. Your daughter's talent is actually very good. Lu Tianyin's eyes brightened when she heard Yi Zichen's praise. Then she lowered her head shyly. His talent is not bad, but he's too lazy. Lu Shuiheng spoke to Yi Zichen as if they were friends. That wasn't strange. They were both in the star level. The way Lu Shuiheng saw it, Yi Zichen might even be a bit stronger than him. A world where strength reigned supreme. Age was never the main factor that affected the seniority of both parties. Even if it was an old man who was about to be buried, he would still respectfully call him senior when he saw a youth whose strength was higher than his. That was how Lu Shuiheng treated Yi Zichen. He felt that Yi Zichen was strong enough, so he naturally treated him like a junior. As he spoke, he didn't hold back too much. Feeling his daughter's murderous gaze, Lu Shuiheng hurriedly changed the topic. Where did the future brother come from? I came from a village in the north. Yi Zichen didn't hide it and replied with a smile. The village in the north? As he spoke, Lu Shuiheng was stunned. Didn't the vicious beast forest already seal off all paths? Did the future brother pass through the forest to get here? Yes, Yi Zichen nodded. Gasp! Lu Shuiheng's two subordinates, who were carrying the earth dragon's corpse, couldn't help but gasp when they heard that. If someone else said that, they would definitely retort. Was it really that easy to pass through the vicious beast forest? Even someone in the 7th or 8th level of the star level wouldn't be able to say for sure that they could. And yet, they couldn't refute Yi Zichen's words. Didn't they see that he'd already tamed 3 flaming lions? Someone who could even tame flaming lions couldn't possibly pass through the vicious beast forest. Future brother, pardon me for asking, but your star level, 2 levels, Yi Zichen replied. Only 2 levels? Lu Shuiheng frowned. Is there a problem? Then did the future brother encounter any beasts above the 4th level? No, Yi Zichen shrugged. Forget the 4th level. I didn't even see a star level beast. Future brother, you really are lucky. What do you mean? To tell you the truth, there were even cosmic level beasts in the forest just now. If you came from the northern village, you should have passed by a few 6th level star level beast hordes, but you said you didn't even see a star level beast. Isn't that lucky? Lu Shuiheng explained with a smile. Yi Zichen's heart skipped a beat. 6th level star level. Vicious beast hordes. Qing Hui and Han Qing hadn't told him about it. If that was really the case, then he really was lucky. Yi Zichen might have died if he ran into them. Of course, Yi Zichen didn't blame them. Qing Hui and Han Qing had tried very hard to persuade him. What's more, they hadn't been to the other side of the forest in tens of thousands of years. Their understanding of it came from ancient books. After tens of thousands of years, the vicious beasts in the forest had evolved. Understandable. Then I really am lucky. Yi Zichen nodded with a smile. Lu Shuiheng laughed along with him. It's been a long time since anyone from the northern village came to our side. Future brother, since you're here, you must have come to determine the village's level, right? Determine? Yi Zichen frowned. Is that not the case? Lu Shuiheng was stunned. The reason our town is separated from your village by the vicious beast forest is because of the difference in levels. Different levels live in different areas. That's an ancient rule. If you want to live in a higher level area, you need to go through a new ranking test. The vicious beast forest is a barrier to prevent lower-level villages from forcefully taking the test. Something like that happened. Yi Zichen was shocked. Hey, little lion, how old are you? The young man walked at the back and chatted with the lion cubs. Perhaps sensing that the young man had no ill intentions, the adult lions allowed him to fool around with their children. However, at that moment, Lu Tianyin walked up and grabbed the young man by the ear. Come over here. What are you doing, sis? The young man frowned. Lu Tianyin pursed her lips. Go and ask around. What's the relationship between those people and future big brother? Lu Tianyin indicated towards Bai Sei and company, be big brother. The young man doubted his ears, then revealed a look of shock. Sis, you can't be in love, right? Oh my God, even a stone girl can welcome spring. Do you want to get beaten up? Lu Tianyin clenched her fist threateningly. Go and ask. Chapter 2355. Level Determination. Yi Zichen found this to be rather novel. Han Qing and Qing Hui were natives who were born and raised here. Before Yi Zichen left for the south, they'd warned him over and over again, but none of them mentioned anything about the level determination. Yi Zichen guessed that they probably didn't know either. Otherwise, there was no way they wouldn't have mentioned it. You don't know? Lu Shuiheng raised his eyebrows, then quickly nodded. That's true. We've had tens of thousands of levels here, and nothing has changed. It's not strange for people to forget about it. Since you're not here for the level determination, then little brother, you came here for. I came to broaden my horizons, smiled Yi Zichen. I see. Lu Shuiheng didn't say anything else, but Yi Zichen was very interested in the level determination. I wonder if Brother Lu can tell me more about the level determination in detail. That's a long story. Lu Shuiheng shook his head. How about this? We'll talk about it when we get back to town. I don't think you have a place to stay, so how about you stay at my place? I'll tell you about the level determination. All right. About 4 hours later, Yi Zichen and company arrived at Lu Shuiheng's town after returning from the vicious beast forest. The town was surrounded by a towering city wall. It occupied a vast area. Yi Zichen couldn't even see the end of it. There were many guards outside the city. The moment they saw the flaming lion, they all gripped their weapons. Everyone, don't be alarmed. Lu Shuiheng walked up. The guard were stunned when they saw Lu Shuiheng, then smiled. Captain Lu, you're back. The guards at the entrance greeted him with a smile. It was obvious that Lu Shuiheng had some fame in this town. Many of the guards around him greeted him with a smile. Oh, this Earth Dragon has at least a level 7 domain, right? You're back so quickly? It seems like Captain Lu gave Miss a God-given weapon. I wonder what grade it is. Can you tell us? How could a God-given weapon be so easy to obtain? Lu Shuiheng sighed, his eyes filled with bitterness. I accidentally injured my muscles and bones during this trip, so I had to come back to recover. What? The guards were all shocked. Although Lu Shuiheng's realm was not among the best in the village, he was definitely among the top echelon of experts. Going to the vicious beast forest had actually injured his muscles and bones. Then, Captain Lu, you have to rest well. The guard smiled as he spoke. Then, he looked at the 3 adult and juvenile blazing lions behind him. May I know what this is? Don't worry, these flaming lions have been tamed. Lu Shuiheng opened his mouth and smiled. Under the shocked gazes of the surrounding guards, he took out a bag of money from his bosom and placed it in the hands of the guard leader. Thank you for your hard work. When the shift is over, go buy some wine. Haha, you're too polite, Captain Lu. As he spoke, the guard put the money into his pocket and shouted at the people behind him. Let them pass. The access card at the city gate was removed. Lu Shuiheng and Yi Zichen walked side by side, while the flaming lions followed behind. When they passed through the city gates, the surrounding guards instinctively retreated. An adult flaming lion was at least a domain 9 or above. Coupled with its flames, even a stellar-level warrior would not dare to compete with it. These guards, they were all people in the 8th and 9th level of the domain 9. Even the leader of the guards here was only at the 1st level of the star level. None of them would be able to beat the flaming lion if it bit down. In their town, only the mayor's manor had a flaming lion, which was very impressive. Countless large families in the town felt envious and wanted to tame a few to support their family's reputation. However, all of them returned in failure. This time, Lu Shuiheng brought back 6 flaming lions. No wonder Captain Lu was injured. It seems like he was injured while taming the flaming lions. 6 flaming lions. The mayor's manor doesn't even have one. Captain Lu is truly amazing. The surrounding guards all exclaimed, while their admiration and envy could be seen from their eyes. Who doesn't want a flaming lion? He was awe-inspiring. The Lu family is going to rise. Someone else sighed. All of this was because of the 6 flaming lions. I don't think so. At that moment, a young man with messy hair, who was chewing on a weed, twitched his mouth. 6 flaming lions. Even mediocre people like you know that the Lu family is going to rise. Do you think the mayor doesn't know? Who is the mayor's family? Will they allow the Lu family to grow? Just wait and see. In less than a night, the mayor's family will definitely come to the Liu family. At that time, the young man's words stunned the surrounding guards, and they secretly nodded in their hearts. These words really analyzed everything very thoroughly. But why did the voice sound a little familiar? It's you again, you little bastard. The leader of the guards was the first to turn around and point at the young man. Last time, you lied to my son and were fooled by him. You still dare to come. Damn, this little liar is still here. Catch him. The city gate was in a mess. The surrounding guards all seemed to have some grudges with this young man. Seeing these people coming to grab him, the young man squinted his eyes and swung his leg, throwing his stinky shoes on the face of one of the guards. It's all because of your stupidity. Haha, you're blaming me for being tricked? That's a bit too much. Catch him. Everyone shouted angrily, causing the city gate to be in chaos. You guys want to catch me? The young man raised his hand and grabbed the guard's face, then reached out to pinch the guard's nose and took off his shoes. It's just nice for me to change into a new pair of shoes. Then, he took off another pair of broken shoes. He covered the guard's face. Then, he leaped up and grabbed a corner of the city gate. Bye-bye. I'll come and play with you guys when I'm free. Go back and teach your son to grow some brains. I'm getting bored of bullying them all the time. Yi Zichen and company, who had already entered the city, looked very impressive. The surrounding passers-by all revealed a shocked expression as they looked at the flaming lions. Liu Tiannin's cousin. He held his head high. It was as if the flaming lions were his mounts. His face was filled with pride as he waved towards the surrounding people like a triumphant hero. Dong, Liu Tiannin slapped him. Are you an idiot? Sis. The young man covered his head. Liu Tiannin frowned. Where did the questioning go? Hey, I've asked everything. The young man smiled, then moved closer to Liu Tiannin's ear. Very quickly, Liu Tiannin revealed a surprised expression. Really? Absolutely. The young man patted his chest. It's absolutely true. There's nothing fake about it at all. Well done. Liu Tiannin squinted her eyes and smiled. She silently clenched her fist as she looked at Yi Zichen's back. Chapter 2356. Liu Shuiheng had a small manor in town. Yi Zichen was rather surprised that there wasn't anyone in the manor. He had thought that Liu Shuiheng would have a small family here with his strength. Master, go and prepare some raw meat. Liu Shuiheng looked at the young, flaming lions behind him. He didn't know what they ate, but there shouldn't be any problems with feeding the meat. The servant left to carry out the order. When he left, he couldn't help but tremble as he looked at the flaming lions. Future, let's go out for a walk, Hua Jinro spoke up. They finally came to a new place. Hua Jinro couldn't help but want to go out for a walk. Although Bai Sei and company didn't say anything, it was clear that they were very curious about this place. Sure, go ahead. Be careful not to cause trouble. What are you saying? Am I someone who will cause trouble? Hua Jinro put her hands on her waist, then ran out happily, while Meng Luo and company followed behind her. Future Bro's friends are truly active. Please. Yi Zichen also nodded and walked in after Hua Jinro. When the two of them sat down, Liu Tiannin obediently poured a cup of tea for Liu Shuiheng and Yi Zichen, then stood behind Liu Shuiheng in an extremely obedient manner. Haha, it's truly rare for our Tiannin to be so obedient. Liu Shuiheng was momentarily stunned, then laughed out loud. Liu Tiannin frowned and pouted. Dad, haha. I feel like Lady Tiannin has always been rather obedient, Yi Zichen smiled. Hearing that, Liu Tiannin blushed, then looked at the somewhat empty table. I'll go and prepare fruits for you guys. She quickly ran out of the long hall. Liu Shuiheng maintained a kind smile on his face until she left, then let out a long sigh. How could he not know his daughter's thoughts? Anyone would like such a young hero. If Yi Zichen wanted to marry his daughter, Liu Shuiheng definitely wouldn't refuse. However, how could such a heroic young man like his daughter? It wasn't that he didn't have confidence in his daughter. In terms of looks, Liu Tiannin was one of the best in town, and her talent was also top-notch. Even Liu Shuiheng could see that. There was no way Yi Zichen would be moved by love. His eyes were calm and unperturbed, but Liu Shuiheng could tell that this young man, his heart cherished the world. What he wanted was much more than a romantic relationship. Senior Lu, why are you sighing? Yi Zichen asked. Haha, what's senior? In the future, I'll also be at the star level. There's no need for you and me to be seniors, Lu Shuiheng said with a smile. I just touched my wound and couldn't help but sigh. Right. Yi Zichen nearly forgot that his flame lion broke Lu Shuiheng's ribs before he returned. Brother Lu, why don't you take care of your wounds first? It's fine. Lu Shuiheng smiled. It's just a small injury. It's nothing serious. In the future, don't you want to know about the ranking? I'll tell you about it, so you don't have to worry about it. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Lu. Lu Shuiheng waved his hand again, indicating that there was no need to mind. Regarding the ranking, we actually have to go back a long time ago, according to what Lu Shuiheng said. They were on an entire continent, just like the original Panga continent on Earth. The continent was a whole and had yet to split apart. In other words, there were no oceans here, only streams or lakes. A long time ago, they had been attacked by ferocious beasts. In order to defend against the ferocious beasts, the ruler of the planet had set up several barriers to prevent them from invading. These barriers were the so-called ferocious beast forest. Now, the forest had already become an area where the ferocious beasts lived. Since the ferocious beasts were trapped according to their levels, they naturally needed humans to fight and kill them. Otherwise, if they were given enough time, the ferocious beasts without any natural enemies would definitely threaten the safety of humans. Thus, at that time, the ruler made a decision. He sent the humans out. Every level had a corresponding human. The purpose of these humans was to reduce the number of ferocious beasts and limit their reproduction. When this rule was made, the problem of the ferocious beasts' reproduction was solved, but humans faced another problem. That was, no one was willing to live in a lower-level area forever. As for those who lived in a higher-level area, they didn't know how to improve and were too lazy to keep up with the ferocious beasts. Thus, the ruler issued a constitution. Every 10 years, the first round of strength ranking. When one's strength reached the level of a higher-level area, the humans living in the lower-level area could go and live in the higher-level area, while the people from the higher-level area had to move to the lower-level area. This was also to motivate the humans in the different areas. This allowed them to keep improving. However, the ruler neglected one of the most important problems. The people in the lower-level area lived in the worst environment. Even if they worked hard, they wouldn't be able to improve much. Not to mention reaching the lowest level, they couldn't even pass through the ferocious beast forest, which prevented them from advancing. As a result, after several thousand years, the level of the area never changed, and the ruler never issued a new constitution again. Gradually, everyone forgot about this matter and obediently lived in their own areas. So that's how it is. Yi Zichen nodded. He had a rough understanding of the situation. To put it bluntly, the world was divided into many areas, and the outer areas were circles of ferocious beast forests. The centermost area was where the highest level was. The people living there were the strongest people on the planet, and they enjoyed the best resources on the planet. Outside the forest was the second-level area, and so on and so forth. You should have sensed it too. The cosmic energy here should be denser than yours, said Lu Shuiheng. If he hadn't said it, Yi Zichen wouldn't have sensed it. But now that he said it, it really did feel denser. Yi Zichen couldn't help but think of the other planes. However, this was different. They were on the same planet, and yet they could still make such distinctions. What kind of method was this? Big Brother Lu, what do we have to do to determine the level of the area? To tell the truth, I'm not sure either. Lu Shuiheng smiled and shook his head. According to the ancient records, you don't have to do anything to determine the level of the area. All you have to do is wait for the people from the lower level area to reach the higher level area. Someone will naturally notice them and evaluate their strength. Do you want to cause trouble? Yi Zichen frowned. I didn't say that, said Lu Shuiheng with a smile. That's up to you. What do you want to do? With that, Lu Shuiheng cracked his neck. Future brother, I won't be keeping you company any longer. My wound hurts a lot, so I'm going back to rest. As for your living quarters, someone will arrange them for you. If you're not used to it, there are plenty of inns in town. Go on, Big Brother Lu. Goodbye. Chapter 2357. It was baffling. Yi Zichen, who was sitting in the hall, shrugged. What exactly is this person saying? He gave a long speech and then directly went silent when it came to the grading of the regions. Don't know. Not sure. When Yi Zichen mentioned that I caused trouble, he even said that he didn't say it. This guy doesn't seem like a good person. Who doesn't seem like a good person? At that moment, Lu Tianyin walked over with a plate of fruits. She looked at the empty hall and mustered her courage to ask Yi Zichen, "Why isn't my dad here?" "He left." "Are you guys done?" Lu Tianyin asked. Yi Zichen nodded, then took a fruit from the plate. "Do you know where my friends went?" "They went towards the south of town." "Thank you." Yi Zichen looked up and walked outside. Lu Tianyin pursed her lips. "Do you want to stay at my house? I'll get someone to clean up the room for you." "No need for the trouble. We can just stay outside." Yi Zichen left the manor with a smile, then walked towards the south of town without looking back. Lu Tianyin pursed her lips for a long time, then chucked the plate onto the table. She ran to the backyard. At that moment, Lu Shuiheng was meditating on the training stone. "Dad, what is it?" Lu Shuiheng asked. "Why did that person suddenly stop staying at our house? Did you say something to him that you shouldn't have? You're here because of this." Lu Shuiheng smiled, then called Lu Tianyin over. Where they want to live is something they could decide themselves. Whether they want to live here or not, we have no way to stop them from deciding. "But," Lu Tianyin hesitated. What's wrong with my darling daughter? He just isn't staying at our house. Why do you care so much?" Lu Tianyin pursed her lips. "I'm actually thinking for you. Look, he has 6 flame lions. If he can stay at our house, then everyone in town will definitely be scared of you. Grandpa and the others will definitely treat you differently." All of a sudden, Lu Shuiheng's smile turned dark. However, he restrained himself very quickly, so Lu Tianyin didn't notice the change in her father's expression. She was still chattering about the benefits of Lu Shuiheng. Then, Lu Shuiheng reached out and patted Lu Tianyin's head with a smile in his eyes. "Our Tianyin has grown up and knows how to think for his father." "Of course." Lu Tianyin proudly raised her head. "I've always been very sensible. I'll also make a name for myself in this mercenary exam and bring honor to my father." "All right." Lu Shuiheng nodded and stroked Lu Tianyin's head. "Go play. Daddy needs to recover from his injuries. Then those people, father knows what to do." Watching Lu Tianyin leave, Lu Shuiheng let out a long sigh, gently shook his head, and silently closed his eyes. To be honest, Yi Zichen looked at the town in front of him. He was somewhat disappointed, but also secretly delighted. Everything here was still very classical. He couldn't sense the existence of advanced technology. The appearance of this place seemed to have remained in ancient times on Earth. People lived in small houses. There were no tall buildings or advanced tools. The research in Chaotic City had already begun. As long as they had enough time, Chaos City could absolutely crush this place with their technology. Approximately 10-odd minutes later, Yi Zichen saw Hua Jinro and company walking around in the town. Lu Tianyin's little brother, who had been with them since the beginning, was also among them. Just as Yi Zichen was about to chase after them, a scream suddenly sounded out in front of him. Then, Yi Zichen saw a young man fall down in front of him. The young man had messy hair and a dirty face. His clothes were very tattered, and he was even wearing cloth shoes that didn't fit him. He was curled up into a ball. He held his left foot with both hands and a ferocious expression on his face. At a glance, one could tell that his foot had been crushed into a comminuted fracture. Are you okay?" Yi Zichen scratched his head and frowned at the young man in front of him. My foot, my foot." The young man clutched his foot and screamed. His hysterical appearance completely dumbfounded Yi Zichen. "What's going on? Does it hurt that much? What's wrong with him?" "You're hurt?" Yi Zichen frowned. The young man instantly glared at him and cursed. "Nonsense, are you blind? You can't even tell? You stepped on my foot." "What the hell?" Yi Zichen's expression instantly darkened. Not to mention the fact that he didn't step on it. Even if he did, he couldn't have stepped on it like that. He wasn't an armored tank. How could a single step on him break his bones? "Scammer. You came here to scam her?" Yi Zichen grinned. The young man seemed to find this scammer rather interesting. He blanked out for a while, then continued to cover his foot and grab Yi Zichen's leg. "You stepped on my foot and broke it. Pay up." "I really—" Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh, then took out a handful of star coins. "Is this enough? Let me see." The young man glanced over and saw that there were 10,000 star coins on it. That was quite a lot. His eyes instantly lit up, and he snatched all the money back. "Since you're an outsider, I won't ask for much. That's all." The young man twisted his neck and put all the money into his pocket, then leaped up and disappeared from the street. What the F***? It was just a few tens of thousands of star coins. Yi Zichen didn't take it to heart. When he saw that Hua Jianrou and the others had already disappeared, he let out a long sigh and hurried after them. "This is the best restaurant in our area. The wine inside is very expensive. I even had a small cup a few years ago. It's really good." Lu Tianing's little brother was like a tour guide. He introduced Hua Jianrou and the others to the surrounding buildings and shops. "Actually, it's all thanks to you guys. If you weren't here, I might have been kicked out long ago. Someone like me doesn't deserve to walk in the middle of the street." Meng Luo and the Flame Rat both looked at him with pity. Hua Jianrou was in a similar situation. Only Bai Sei's expression didn't change much. He even scrutinized the young man. A bunch of idiots. In a distant alley, the young man who just scammed Yi Zichen for tens of thousands of star coins chomped down on Meng Luo and the others. At that moment, he suddenly frowned. Yi Zichen hurried over to meet up with Meng Luo and the others. "These idiots." The young man let out a long sigh, then looked at the roast chicken in his hands, carefully put it away, and scratched his head. "Just take it as me doing good deeds. It's all my fault for being so kind." Chapter 2358. After many twists and turns, Yi Zichen found a few people who were strolling around the town in front of a restaurant. When he got to it, Meng Luo and the others didn't look too good. Their eyes were full of pity, as if they had heard a touching story from a storyteller. "What's wrong?" Yi Zichen walked in front of Bai Sei. Out of all of them, Bai Sei was the only one who seemed to be fine. Bai Sei did not say a word as he glanced at the young man. This young man, future god. Meng Luo's face was full of pity as she walked over with red eyes. "Little Hai is so pitiful." "Huh, Little Hai?" Yi Zichen looked at the young man in confusion. "I still don't know the young man's name. Is he the Lil Hai Meng Luo mentioned?" "Who's Little Hai?" "Senior, it's me," the youth replied. "Junior has been impolite. Up until now, I still haven't introduced myself to Senior. Junior song, Hai greets future Senior." The young man looked very polite. Yi Zichen nodded in return. Then a look of surprise surfaced in his eyes. "Your surname is not Lu?" "My surname is Song." Song Hai smiled. "I was adopted by Senior Lu Shuiheng. I'm not a member of the Lu clan." "I see." Regarding Song Hai's background, Yi Zichen wasn't interested in learning more. No matter what he'd experienced in the past, it didn't affect Yi Zichen at all. Yi Zichen nodded towards him, then prepared to tell Meng Luo and company about finding an inn. But at this moment, before Yi Zichen could speak, Song Hai directly knelt in front of him. "Senior, please accept me as your disciple." This sudden turn of events left Yi Zichen dumbfounded. "Apprenticeship?" Yi Zichen looked at the others strangely, then noticed that only Bai Sei frowned slightly. The others all acted as if it was only natural, while Hua Jianrou even walked up to speak up for him. "In the future, why don't you accept him?" "Hey, what was going on?" Yi Zichen looked at Meng Luo and the Flame Rat with an expression of hope that Yi Zichen would accept him as a disciple. "Senior, please accept me as your disciple." Song Hai knelt on the ground and said sincerely, "I've been an orphan since I was young and was bullied in this town. Junior begs Senior to accept Junior and let Junior learn by your side." "Future God, Little Hai is really pitiful." "Future God." Meng Luo and the Flame Rat also chimed in. How tragic is he?" "Exactly." Meng Luo pursed her lips. She didn't need Song Hai to say it himself. She said it for him. There was no other reason than. The young man lost his mother and father. The family declined. He lived alone in this town without anyone to rely on. He had been bullied and looked down upon by countless people since he was a child. Yet, under such circumstances, he was still full of hope for life and lived a positive life. Full of hope for tomorrow. He was looking forward to the future. To some kind-hearted and pure people, such a touching situation was really a trump card. It could be seen from Meng Luo and the others that they were moved beyond control. What a pity. Yi Zichen was no longer the naive young man from before. At the start, Yi Zichen still had a sliver of a good impression towards the young man. Now, it could be said that all that was left was disgust. Everything, it was all because of Meng Luo and the others' consolation. Yi Zichen didn't know what the young man had said to Meng Luo and the others along the way. For Meng Luo, Hua, Jinro, and the Flame rat to be so moved and plead for him. However, Yi Zichen firmly believed in one thing. Acting pitiful to gain sympathy was all done intentionally. Don't talk about showing your emotions. When you reach a certain place, your emotions will burst out like a flood. It's all fake. The moment he said all that, it was already proof that he hoped to get others to be lenient towards him or pity him. True, deep emotions. They had always been buried in the depths of one's heart. Even if others tried to dig deep, they might not be able to find it out, let alone say it to others. Take the initiative. Taking the initiative and being passive had completely different meanings. If you take the initiative to say it and others ask you, then when your feelings reach a certain point, you say it like you're telling them everything. How could it be the same? Scheming. I was bullied. Yi Zichen nodded heavily, then patted Song Hai's shoulder as if he felt the same way. Senior, I'm already used to these hardships. I just want to, just as Song Hai was making use of this opportunity. Yi Zichen's words rendered him speechless. Then why don't you work hard to become stronger, so strong that no one can bully you? Everyone knows the coldness of the world. Since you already have nothing, why do you always want to rely on others? Can't you work hard yourself? I try my best. Song Hai shouted. I didn't see it. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes with a hint of disdain. From Meng Luo's words just now, I can feel that you have been alone for several years. How many years has it been? Up until now, you seem to still be at the 5th level of the domain realm. I have no resources. Fine, you don't have resources. Yi Zichen nodded heavily. Then let me ask you this. Why didn't I hear you mention Lu Shuiheng at all? He's your benefactor who adopted you. Don't you feel grateful towards him? Have you ever thought that there are plenty of people in this world who are worse off than you? You might not have the best life, but you definitely aren't the worst either. In the distance, the disheveled young man, who was about to speak up, was stunned. Perhaps because he didn't think that Yi Zichen would say something like that. He took out the roast chicken with a chuckle and took another bite. However, he froze the very next second. This world, who isn't trying their best to advance? Yi Zichen squinted his eyes at Song Hai, who was kneeling on the ground. Do you know that I was only at the 6th level of the domain realm 2 months ago? I only just reached the domain realm half a year ago. But now, you want to kneel on the ground and call me senior and want to take me as your master. Do you want to take me as your master? Or do you want to take my flaming lion as your master? Song Hai, who was kneeling on the ground, instantly trembled. It was as if, in that instant, Yi Zichen's words had struck the depths of his heart, and he'd seen through his innermost thoughts. If you want to take me as your master, then go find someone else. I believe that there are plenty of experts in this city. Yi Zichen pursed his lips with a smile, then patted Song Hai's shoulders. I'm really sorry, but I don't have any thoughts of taking you as my disciple. I advise you to stop the thought of taking me as your master. I'm not suitable for you, and you definitely aren't the disciple I want to take in. Chapter 23:59. Great deity. Meng Luo and company looked at Yi Zichen in shock. They truly felt that Song Hai was rather pitiful. He had suffered so much since he was young, and they thought that it would be best if he could help them to the best of his abilities. From what they could see, the future great deity should be a kind person. They really didn't expect it to be like this. The world is uncertain. You and I are both black horses. If you really want to find a master, then go find a master who can give you some advice. Yi Zichen patted Song Hai's shoulders heavily. Song Hai, who was kneeling on the ground with a pleading and yearning expression just a second ago and wanted to become Yi Zichen's disciple, had a drastic change in expression the moment Yi Zichen rejected him. He didn't even listen to Yi Zichen's last sentence. He shook off Yi Zichen's arm, stared at Yi Zichen's face, then cupped his hands towards Meng Luo and company. I won't stay here and annoy people. Songhai. Before Meng Luo and the others could speak, Songhai plunged into the crowd and disappeared without a trace. Future great deity, why did you do this? Meng Luo bit her lips in confusion as she watched Songhai disappear into the crowd. From the feeling that Yi Zichen gave off, he seemed to be a bit too heartless. Do you think I did something wrong? Yi Zichen smiled towards Meng Luo and company. Nobody said anything. It was clear from their expressions that they didn't quite understand Yi Zichen's actions. They were still like children living in a greenhouse. Even Hua Jinro was at most a bit older. She was still lacking in terms of life experience. Songhai, was he worthy of sympathy? Perhaps. It was actually rather hard for a living person to live so well in order to climb up step by step. But Yi Zichen definitely couldn't let someone like that stay by his side. It was too dangerous. There were too many uncertainties. Nobody could say for sure that he wouldn't do the same thing when he met other people in the future. Nobody knew whether he would betray Yi Zichen and company in order to climb higher. These uncertainties, Yi Zichen wouldn't keep him. What are we going to do in the future? Bai Sei broke the silence as everyone remained silent. Although I hate this person as well, they are indeed the only indigenous people that we know here. Without them, it would be very difficult for us to blend in here. Arriving in an unfamiliar environment, if he had to rely on himself to explore everything, the efficiency would indeed be much lower. It was normal for White to have such considerations. If we treat Songhai like this now, I don't know what he's going to say to us when he gets back. We might not even be able to continue living there. You can rest assured about this. Yi Zichen smiled. I already didn't plan on staying at Lu Shuiheng's place before I came here. We're not going to live there anymore. Meng Luo blinked. That Lu Shuiheng doesn't look like a good person. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and thought back to what Lu Shuiheng had said to him. I came to find you guys to tell you about this. I didn't expect to run into such trouble. He's really pitiful. Is he pitiful? Unexpectedly, it was White who interrupted Meng Luo. Do you really think that he's pitiful? Don't any of you think that he has a strong motive? Meng Luo didn't understand. No matter how tough a person's life is, those hardships will definitely be hidden away. When he said all of this, it means that he's prepared to use it to gain sympathy. Yi Zichen hesitated for a moment, then told them all of his thoughts. Yi Zichen hesitated for a moment, then told them everything he was thinking. To be honest, I'm still suspicious of everything he just told you. Suspicious. He was naturally referring to the truthfulness of Songhai's words. Meng Luo and the Flame Rat had simple minds, so they didn't immediately understand what Yi Zichen meant. Hua Jinro, after thinking about it for a while, she clapped her hands. Yeah, F***, I was actually scared by this little bastard. Lil White, why didn't you tell me that you were suspicious from the start? You wouldn't have listened even if I told you. Bai Sei twitched his mouth. Oh no, I'm so stupid. This is a huge loss. Hua Jinro scratched her head in annoyance. Bai Sei walked in front of her with a chuckle and grabbed her hand. There's nothing to lose even if you realize it now. How is there nothing? Hua Jinro bit her lips, then peeked into Yi Zichen's eyes. I also gave him money and equipment. What? Bai Sei exclaimed. How much? 1 million galaxy dollars and the purple pellet weapon that you gave me in the future. I gave all to him. The money was actually fine. 1 million galaxy dollars was only 100 universe dollars. It was still acceptable for Yi Zichen. Purple tier. Up until now, the highest level weapon that Yi Zichen smiths could forge was purple tier. Even the guards in his city could not fully equip them. This trip, Yi Zichen upgraded Hua Jinro and company's equipment for their safety. If he didn't remember wrongly, Hua Jinro's purple tier was a weapon with a special effect. It was not an exaggeration. That weapon was already a top-tier weapon below the star level. Even if a star-level person had it, it would not be bad. If it was put up for auction, it would be able to sell for at least 10,000 universe dollars. That was only in-game currency. If it was exchanged outside of the game, no wonder Hua Jinro peeked at Yi Zichen when she said that. Lil Ro, Bai Sei was completely shocked. Not to mention her, even Meng Luo and the Flame Rat knew the importance of a purple tear. When did you give it to him? On the way. Hua Jinro frowned. Hua Jinro frowned. He said that my weapon looked good and that he had always wanted a weapon that he could use. He wanted to get a good score in the mercenary assessment. So I gave it to him. I even gave him 1,000,000. Oh my god, Bai Sei face-palmed. I don't know why that happened either. All right, he just tricked a weapon and some money. Yi Zichen smiled. It's good that he didn't trick Hua Jinro's people. Now, that everyone knows what kind of person he is, we just have to be careful in the future. How could he trick my people? Hua Jinro shouted. That might not be the case, Yi Zichen smiled. From the looks of it, if he was given a bit more time, you might have run away with him. What should we do now? Bai Sei asked. I know. Suddenly, Hua Jinro raised her hand. We can go to the mercenary exam and catch that bad brat and teach him a lesson. Chapter 2360. Dad, the flaming lion was taken away. Lu Tianyin stood outside the room with a rather lonely expression. The flaming lion left. This meant that Yi Zichen and company wouldn't be coming back. Let's just leave. Lu Shuiheng's emotions didn't fluctuate much. Maybe he felt that it was a pity, but he didn't show it. It was also possible that he had never intended to keep these people in his mansion in the first place. He waved his hand and called Lu Tianyin into the room. At that moment, Songhai was also on Lu Shuiheng's left side. He was obedient and had the same innocent look as before. This is the weapon Lil Hai prepared for you. Take a look. As he spoke, Lu Shuiheng took out a long saber that seemed to be of high quality. A faint purple light could be seen on the blade. Purple tier. This purple light was unique to purple tier weapons. The moment Lu Tianyin saw the long saber, her expression changed. She hurriedly ran over and held the weapon with both hands while her eyes were filled with surprise. Purple tier. Lu Shuiheng nodded with a smile. Hearing that, Lu Tianyin walked in front of Songhai with eyes filled with shock and confusion. Where did you get this from? My mother left this for me. Songhai pursed his lips with a sad expression. Songhai pursed his lips with a sad look on his face. I originally wanted to keep it for my own use. Sister, aren't you going to take the test in a few days? I thought that taking this weapon out might be of some help to you. No, this is too precious. Lu Tianyin put the weapon into Songhai's hands. She had always wanted a God-given weapon. However, she was never greedy to the point of wanting a purple tier weapon. She was already very satisfied with a dark gold weapon. But now, a purple tier weapon, to be honest, it would be a lie if she wasn't moved. The moment she touched the purple tier weapon, she could feel the weapon's sharpness. If she could have this weapon, coupled with the 10 years of training she had, she was confident that she would be able to get a good result in the exam. It was this weapon. It was left to him by Songhai's mother, which made Lu Tianyin unable to use it. Songhai's life was very pitiful. Even though he had only been in the Lu family for a short time, she still treated him like a little brother. Sis, what are you talking about? It's all thanks to you and Uncle Lu that I'm still alive. If it weren't for you guys, I would have been dead by now, and this weapon would have been snatched away. Now, I'll give this weapon to you. If you can get a good ranking in the test, I'll be happy for you. Songhai smiled as he placed the weapon back into Lu Tianyin's hand. After that, he immediately left the room, not giving Lu Tianyin any chance to refuse. As he walked, he was still full of smiles. The moment he stepped out of the door, his eyes turned gloomy, and the surrounding 5 meters around him was filled with a gloomy feeling. Father, I have a God-bestowed weapon. The room was filled with Lu Tianyin's joyful laughter, but Songhai's brows became even more gloomy. No matter what he did, in the end, he was an outsider. He looked at the gold equipment in his hand. Songhai's eyes were filled with ridicule. Using a gold-ranked equipment to compensate, only Lu Shuiheng could think of such a thing. Lu Tianyin's eyes were filled with excitement after obtaining a purple tier God-bestowed weapon. Seeing that his daughter was so happy, Lu Shuiheng couldn't help but smile in his heart. Now that you have a weapon, You have to work hard these few days. Try to get a good ranking. I heard that the person who gets first in the test will also get a purple tier weapon. You have to try and win a weapon for Lil Hai. He isn't suited to using a blade, so you can pick out a dagger for him. Lu Shuiheng smiled. I definitely will. Lu Tianyi nodded. Even if she had a dark gold ranked weapon, she had the confidence to get a good ranking. A purple tier weapon. First place is definitely in the bag. Lu Tianyi excitedly ran out of the house and prepared to test the power of her weapon. At that moment, not long after Lu Tianyi left the house, she saw a lot of people rushing in the same direction. She furrowed her eyebrows as she put away her weapon and ran out as well. About 10 odd minutes later, in front of tavern, this tavern was a combination of an inn and a tavern. Many customers would end up staying there after getting drunk. Outside the tavern, Yi Zichen stood with his hands behind his back. Beside him were two adult flame lions. He looked down in front of him. In front of him were 3 stellar-level elders and an arrogant young man. The two sides were facing each other. Although none of them spoke, Yi Zichen could feel the sparks between them from the 10 meters between them. Mayor, the Liu family really did come. I knew that they would definitely come. There's no way the Liu family would ignore 6 flame lions. So what if they came? They can't just rob them, right? The onlookers discussed animatedly. Yi Zichen listened intently to their discussion, then looked straight ahead. What is it? Actually, the conflict came out of nowhere. When he stayed at the tavern, he ordered a servant to fetch his flame lions from Lu Shuang. Everything went well along the way, with Meng Luo and the flame rat following them. The flame lions were also very obedient. However, the moment they arrived at the entrance, a bunch of people suddenly appeared and restrained them, wanting to forcefully take the flame lions away. Thus, that led to the scene in front of them. The fiery lion, our Liu clan, is interested in it. Sell it to us, and our Liu clan will give you a reasonable price. The young man in the lead raised his eyebrows slightly, then extended 5 fingers. 5 million. How about it? 5 million what? Of course it's star dollars. The young man smiled. 5 million for a flame lion is already a great deal for you. What's more, you have a few young ones here. We, the Liu family, won't argue with you. We'll buy them all for 5 million. We'll give you a total of 30 million star dollars. Everyone was shocked. Buying the flame lions for 5 million star dollars was clearly daylight robbery. Even a level 3 domain level spiritual beast would be worth over 20 million in the outside world. Not to mention a flame lion that could be above level 8 in its infancy. They really robbed it. What's so strange about that? The Liu family has used the fact that they have a star system level expert in their family to bully others in town. AI, do you know where the Liu family's star system level expert came from? He doesn't seem to be from our town. I've never heard of such a person. Don't talk nonsense. A star system level expert isn't someone we can discuss. Let's just watch the show. Do you think this young man will sell the flame lions? Probably. Who would dare to mess with the Liu family now? Not necessarily. Think about it. Can someone who has 6 flame lions as spiritual beasts be a normal person? Yeah, it seems like this is going to be a good show. Chapter 2361. 5 million star coins. You want to buy the flaming lion back. Yi Zichen sensed such blatant robbery. The surrounding natives could see it clearly, but Yi Zichen could sense it too. He looked around. There were 3-star level masters standing next to the young man. If he wasn't wrong, there were at least 3 more star level masters watching him from the shadows. Interesting. Compared to the village Yi Zichen lived in, it was clear that the people here were much stronger. How is it? 30 million isn't a small amount. The youth smiled with a hint of disdain in his eyes. In their current town, there shouldn't be anyone in the other towns that dared to go against their family. Star Realm. They had absolute dominance. What's more, the Star Realm experts in their family weren't weak. Ever since they found out that someone in the town had 6 flaming lions, their family had decided to steal them back. 5 million. To be honest, they didn't want to give it to him. These guys. Lu Tianyin frowned as she stood in the crowd and gripped her purple rank long blade. It was one thing for them to act like a tyrant in the town, but now they were bullying the future. Ha ha, this is too funny. At that moment, before Lu Tianyin could make a move, a messy youth walked out from the crowd. His hands were covered in grease, and he sucked on his fingers. "Who are you?" The youth frowned angrily. The disheveled youth turned around and smiled coldly. He silently walked in between Yi Zichen and the youth. Then he squatted down in front of the flaming lion and patted the flaming lion's head with his oily hand. Yi Zichen was stunned the moment he touched the lion. Flaming lions were very prideful. Even after being tamed by Yi Zichen, they only listened to Yi Zichen. Even Meng Luo and the others were only given some face because of Yi Zichen. As for the others, don't even mention trying to touch it. They would roar in warning if they even got close. Yet, when the disheveled youth's hand landed, the flaming lion didn't resist. Instead, it laid down obediently. Level 9 Domain. You've been stuck at the domain level for a long time, right? The youth muttered to himself, then rubbed the flaming lion's head. Then I'll give you some good fortune. As Yi Zichen spoke, the young man's gaze instantly sharpened. Even Yi Zichen felt a hint of fear from him. Then, after a brief moment of silence, the flaming lion's entire body burst into crimson flames. The surging flames caused the surrounding people to retreat explosively. Everyone stared at the flaming lion and listened to its deafening roar. Roar. Waves of heat were released outwards like a tide. The scorching flames caused the earth to boil. The young man who came to snatch the flame lion quickly retreated under the protection of several star-level masters. A few minutes passed. The roaring flaming lion gradually calmed down, and the flames vanished. Countless people felt as if they had just survived a disaster. If the flames of the flaming lion had continued to burn, the entire street would have been burnt to ashes. Countless people did not know what had happened. The only thing they could see was the blazing lion that walked out of the flames seemed even more majestic than before. The fur on his body also began to turn fiery red. Flames burned under his feet. Every time he stepped on the ground, he would leave behind a few seconds of flames. "Young master," the blazing lion broke through. The elder beside the young man said solemnly. "Broke through?" The young man frowned. "What do you mean? You're saying that the blazing lion broke through to the star level? Isn't an adult blazing lion's 9th level domain the limit? This subordinate doesn't know that." The elder shook his head silently, then looked at the majestic blazing lion. This subordinate definitely didn't sense wrongly. The current blazing lion is definitely in the star level. Broke through. Even Yi Zichen looked at the scene in shock. Others might not know what had happened, but he did. The disheveled young man had patted the blazing lion's head, causing the fire attribute energy in the lion's body to explode. The blazing lion ran in front of the young man. It rubbed its head against the young man's arm. Not bad. The young man patted the blazing lion's head, as if it was a matter of course. His expression didn't change at all. Then he tilted his head and waved towards Yi Zichen. "Hey, we meet again." "Yeah." Yi Zichen nodded. The last time they met, this brat scammed him for several tens of thousands of star coins. I didn't expect. This time he actually helped my spiritual beast break through to the star level. Don't think too much about it. Just think of it as a small repayment for the living expenses you gave me last time. The youngster narrowed his eyes and looked at the young man in front of him. "Hey, you guys are really shameless. You want to buy the fiery lion for 5 million? Aren't you embarrassed?" "It's none of your business," the young man shouted angrily. "Ha, I don't dare, I don't dare." The young man shook his head. "It's just that this blazing lion broke through to the star level. Do you think you guys have the right to fight over it? Do you think you guys are enough for the blazing lion?" As the young man spoke, the blazing lion seemed to understand what the young man said. It walked over and roared at the young man. The moment it opened its mouth, the smell of blood rushed towards the young man. The young man was so scared that he took several steps back and was only stopped when the star-level elder beside him pulled him back. "It really is the star level." The young man's eyes shone with joy. "That's right. Isn't this even better?" The young man clapped his hands. "Even the main family doesn't have a star level. If we can have one." "Young master, you're too naive." The elder beside the young man heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the blazing lion. When facing off against the beasts, We humans have always relied on our numbers and cultivation base to crush the enemy. If it's a level 9 domain, we might still have the power to fight. A Star Realm beast battle prowess is several times stronger. Not to mention the three of us, even those hiding in the dark together, would have a hard time resisting it. Moreover, we need to estimate the damage. This is the city area. If we damage it, we will have to pay for it. Then what do you guys think we should do? The young man frowned. Go back. The elders said, we definitely have no hope of bringing the blazing lion back if we stay here. We'll think about it when we get back. Ha ha. Why aren't you coming up? The disheveled young man added fuel to the fire. You don't dare? Go. The young man immediately left with the others without leaving any threats behind. The disheveled young man laughed exaggeratedly. The moment they disappeared, his expression turned serious as he looked at Yi Zichen, who was not far away. They will definitely come for revenge. How about, come sit at my place? Chapter 23:62. The youth invited Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen was actually rather interested in the youth in front of him. How did he do it? He reached out his hand and placed it on the lion's head, causing it to break through to the star level. From a youth's expression and actions, it was definitely not a coincidence. It was definitely intentional. If that's the case, could this power of his be harnessed? With this ability, Yi Zichen could definitely create a spiritual beast army. Sure, Yi Zichen hesitated for a moment, then nodded with a smile. It was just as the youth had said. The Liu family had returned in defeat, so they would definitely come back to cause trouble for him after they returned. Yi Zichen wasn't afraid of them. If Yi Zichen really wanted to make a move, they definitely wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Even if they were no match for him, he had taken in the flaming lion as a spirit beast in the first place so that he could have a mount. It was not a big deal for him to give the flaming lion to them, even if they didn't let it go. He, Meng Luo, and company could directly leave and return to the first universe. The Liu family wouldn't be able to do anything to them. He just didn't want trouble. If he stayed here and the Liu family came looking for him, then things would become very troublesome. It just so happened that he was interested in the youth, so staying at his place was exactly what he wanted. Yi Zichen walked behind Hua Jianrou and company. None of them had any objections, so they followed Yi Zichen and the youth out of the city. Along the way, the residents on the streets all subconsciously moved out of the way. Even the Liu family didn't dare to show off, so how could the onlookers block their way? What's more, the star-level flaming lion was too ferocious, so nobody dared to get close. About an hour later, in the wilderness, Yi Zichen and company saw a fenced house. It was very run down. The fence was purely a gentleman's fence. It was less than half a meter tall, so if a thief wanted to get in, it wouldn't take much effort at all. Not to mention the ferocious beasts outside. He was afraid that with a single charge, his small house would be turned into ruins. You sure have guts. Yi Zichen couldn't help but speak up when he saw the youth's house. If he wasn't mistaken, he had seen ferocious beasts less than 200 meters away. Less than 200 meters. If it was an agile, vicious beast, it wouldn't even need 2 seconds to reach them. If the ferocious beast suddenly attacked while the youth was resting, he would become food for the ferocious beasts. This place is pretty good. Hua Jianrou, on the other hand, had a satisfied look in her eyes as she looked at the lush surroundings. As far as the eye could see, the young man was the only one living here. There was a feeling of returning to nature. In the first universe, such an environment was already very rare. As the population of the human clan increased, many life stars had to turn the entire planet into their living areas. There were rows upon rows of skyscrapers and floating castles everywhere. The entire planet was a product of high-tech production. The once emerald green of nature. It was hard to find them on a life star, let alone the planet where Hua Jinrou's team lived. Their planet was a top life star, just like those first-tier cities in Huaxian Earth. It was densely populated. The development of the region was done to the extreme. You have good taste. Faced with Hua Jianrou's compliments, the young man gave her a thumbs up and nodded. I'm not bragging, but my place is the best in the entire town. The air is fresh, and there are no hustle and bustle of the town. The only downside is that it's a bit far from town, so it'll be rather troublesome to buy some food. Are you sure? Yi Zichen looked around. Just now, he saw ferocious beasts running outside. This seems to be a ferocious beast area. Yes. The young man nodded. Of course, don't worry. Although this is a ferocious beast area, it is absolutely safe. As long as you stay within the range of my fence, then you definitely won't be attacked by the ferocious beasts. If you leave the range and get attacked, then I won't care. The young man said with certainty. His confident expression made Yi Zichen feel even more certain of his guess. This young man should have some sort of connection with the ferocious beasts. If that wasn't the case, how could he be so certain that the ferocious beasts wouldn't attack? Ferocious beasts were beasts without thoughts. The only thing they had was bloodlust. Very few of them were sentient. The only explanation for the young man's confidence in such a situation was that he had some sort of connection with the ferocious beasts, which was why he was so fearless. Just like the flaming lion just now, he was able to make the flaming lion break through. That alone was enough to prove a lot. Let me tell you, there are a lot of benefits living here. You have already offended the Liu family. It doesn't matter if you want to or not, they definitely won't give up until they get the flaming lion. It was the branch family that came before, so they will definitely inform the main family when they return. When that happens, it will be very hard for you to threaten the main family with this star-level flaming lion. Is that so? Yi Zichen smiled. Of course. The young man said, I can tell that you're an outsider just by looking at you. Let me tell you this. The mayor of this place wasn't the Liu family, it was the Wei family. The Wei family has been the mayor here for several tens of thousands of years. Why did the Liu family suddenly take over? Why? Yi Zichen asked subconsciously. The Liu family has a star system level. The young man suddenly lowered his voice. It was this star system level expert that allowed the Liu family to become the head of a town. Think about it. If that expert came, would you be able to escape? Star system level. I didn't expect this town to actually have a star system level expert. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and subconsciously touched his arm. If a star system level really did make a move, it would be rather difficult for him to deal with the trump cards he had. Of course, if Lil Fire could wake up, then Yi Zichen felt like he had a fighting chance. Do you think your place can guarantee our safety? Of course. The young man nodded. My place is the territory of a star system level beast. Even that star system level person from the Liu family wouldn't dare to mess around. How about it? Isn't my place a good place to stay? Sort of. Then do you guys want to stay here? Since we're here, we naturally have to stay here. Yi Zichen couldn't help but smile. Yi Zichen couldn't help but smile. Then he saw the young man suddenly reach out his hand like an unscrupulous delinquent. That's great. Give me the room fee, it's not much. 20,000 yuan per person per night. Chapter 2363. Freeze. The best way to make someone's smile disappear was to mention money. Yi Zichen stared at the youth in shock. His tender, greasy hands were in front of him, and his eyes were filled with anticipation. What did you just say? 20,000 a night. That's 100,000 star coin for the 5 of you. The youth's expression didn't change. He didn't even blush as he spoke. You invited me here. Yeah, we're here to solicit guests. What? Don't you want to stay? All right, I'll pay. It was just 20,000 star coins. For someone like Yi Zichen, who owned a city, it wasn't much. He took out 200 galactic dollars. When the youth saw the money, his eyes lit up. I knew it. The person in front of him was definitely a rich man. However, he didn't take all of it. He only took out 1 galactic dollar. What? Hee. If you want to stay, just give it to me tomorrow. My dad said that if you're lazy, you're useless. It's better to collect rent every day. With 1 galactic dollar in hand, the youth retreated from the fence courtyard. Don't run around. There are a lot of vicious beasts here. My residence is the safest. If you need any information, you can ask me. I'm in town every day, so I can tell you the situation at any time. With that, the youth disappeared like a puff of smoke. Bai Se and the others tilted their heads at Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh. Let's stay here. There were plenty of rooms in the fence courtyard. Yi Zichen and the others could all live separately. Perhaps because they were all exhausted, they'd been on the road for the past few days and hadn't gotten much rest. Hua Jinro complained about going offline, so Bai Sei and the others followed her. That was exactly what Yi Zichen wanted. After returning to his room, the first thing Yi Zichen did was set up a seal. The seal of the 5 elements. Yi Zichen had comprehended this when he'd broken through to the star level. It used the 5 elements to seal the surrounding space. It was a type of seal. It was similar to other seals. If someone entered rashly, Yi Zichen would be alerted. The only difference was that this seal contained 5 types of elemental energy. Even if someone intentionally detected it, it wouldn't be easily broken. After confirming that there were no flaws in the seal around the room. Thus, Yi Zichen sat cross-legged on the floor, while all of the elemental spirits of the 5 elements, aside from the fire elemental spirit that was in deep sleep, appeared in the room. These elemental spirits didn't say a word. After they appeared, they went to their respective seats and sat down. Pure elemental energy was released from their bodies and gathered between their hands. Begin. All of a sudden, the 4 elements of water, wind, thunder, and lightning all entered Yi Zichen's body and circulated around him. In less than half a minute, Yi Zichen's face had already begun to redden, the veins on his arms bulged, and large beads of sweat poured down like rain. The elemental spirits all wore grave expressions. After about 2 minutes, the lightning elemental sprite's brows instantly sank. Retreat. The 4 types of elemental energies were all retrieved by the elemental spirits. Yi Zichen, who was sitting in the very center, fell down like a leaf in the wind. The water elemental sprite had already arranged water around him to float him up. Why did you accept it? Yi Zichen let out a long sigh and looked at the elemental sprite in front of him. The 5 elements complement each other. Without the fire elemental sprite, our power of the 5 elements cannot complement each other perfectly. This will put too much of a burden on your body. I don't care. Yi Zichen frowned, while his eyes turned slightly red. He didn't care about the burden at all. The only thing he wanted was to increase his strength as quickly as possible. Emperor's Star, please calm down. At that moment, the lightning elemental sprite was no longer as immature as before. Even though it had yet to enter its teenage phase, it had a hint of youthful heroism. I didn't mention the 5 elements tempering technique to make you hurt yourself. That's right, I did say that the star level might be able to use it. But didn't you feel what happened just now? If we didn't retreat, you would have been torn apart by the power of the 5 elements. Yi Zichen, who was completely drenched in water, remained silent. The 5 elements tempering technique. This was something the lightning elemental sprite had mentioned to Yi Zichen when he decided to stay in the second universe to develop. Back then, he desperately wanted to increase his strength, so the lightning elemental sprite had mentioned this tempering technique. It would be painful, but the effect would be great. He would use the 5 elements to temper his body and expand his cosmic sea, meridians and meridians. After tempering, his cosmic sea would be able to contain even more cosmic energy, his meridians would widen, and the energy within his body would circulate more efficiently. But at the time, he was only at the domain level. His body couldn't endure the 5 elements tempering technique, so he'd used all his strength to break through. But now he still couldn't endure it. Emperor Star, why are you in such a hurry all of a sudden? The lightning elemental sprite dug its ears and frowned. Not too long ago, Yi Zichen hadn't been in such a hurry. But now, all of a sudden, it was as if some disaster was about to befall him, causing his entire personality to change. I'm in a hurry. Yi Zichen didn't give a reason. He merely clenched his teeth and clenched his fists. The lightning elemental sprite was momentarily stunned, while the water and wind elemental sprites frowned. From Yi Zichen's earlier, it seemed like he'd experienced something that changed his desire for strength. But they'd always been by Yi Zichen's side. It's useless to be anxious. For the sake of your life, we can't forcefully temper you. If Brother Fire wakes up, we can try. Before that, we can't continue tempering you. Several of your meridians were already damaged, which means that you can't endure it. What's the reason? Yi Zichen asked. You don't have enough control over the elements. The lightning elemental sprite replied. The thunder elemental sprite replied. Even though you have the few of us, your control and understanding of the elements are too poor. When our elements enter your body will not be able to absorb them, and your meridians will not be able to withstand the tearing of our elements. In other words, I need to increase my control and resistance over the elements, right? Yes. The lightning elemental sprite nodded. Since you mentioned it, I'll tell you. Our future accomplishments are actually closely related to you. If you don't have enough resistance and control over the elements, for your safety, we won't forcefully increase our strength. In other words, you're actually limiting our growth. If you want to have 5 elemental sprite kings, or even more, first you need to grow to the level of an elemental sprite king. Chapter 2364. It seemed like a very harsh condition. Actually, if one understood, there would be no problems. Yi Zichen was like a vessel to the elemental spirits. In order to accommodate the existence of the elemental spirits, the vessel and the elemental spirits had to be on the same basis. If the elemental spirits broke through as a vessel, Yi Zichen's resistance and control towards the elements would still be at a young age. Then, the elemental energy contained within the elemental spirits would definitely cause damage to his body, or even cause his body to explode. Only when the quality of the vessel increased. Only then could the elemental spirits inside increase their strength without any worries. When they reached a critical point of saturation, they would have to wait for the vessel's next upgrade. You guys finally told me. After a moment of silence, Yi Zichen smiled inexplicably. There were some things the elemental spirits didn't tell him before. If he didn't test him like this, who knew how long they would keep it a secret? When the elemental spirits saw Yi Zichen's gaze, the lightning elemental spirit and the other elemental spirits were stunned. Emperor Star, I don't blame you for hiding it from me. Yi Zichen walked up and pinched the lightning elemental spirit's cheeks. You guys just don't want to give me too much pressure, right? The difference between domain and star level was very clear. When Yi Zichen was still at the domain level, his senses weren't as sharp as they were now. Perhaps this wasn't just because his domain broke through to the star level. When his star level breaks through to the star level, his senses should also be sharper. Even so, for someone like him who had just broken through to the star level not too long ago, his senses were already enough. This was reflected in his senses towards the elemental spirits. When he was at the domain level, he was actually quite naive. He thought that all he had to do was nurture the elemental spirits and wait for them to return the favor. Now that he thought about it, his thoughts were truly laughable. How could there be such a simple thing in the world? He didn't have to worry about anything and just waited for the elemental spirits to return the favor. If it really was possible, he believed that the universe would be even more interested in the elemental spirits. Even if he intentionally hid them, as long as someone wanted to investigate him, he wouldn't be able to hide them for long with his domain level. Obtaining elemental spirits was very difficult. Controlling them and becoming their vessel would be even more difficult. Only then would the number of people interested in the elemental spirits decrease. Or rather, they wouldn't search so fervently. It would be best if he could get it, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. This was the truest opinion of the many big shots in the universe regarding the existence of elemental spirits. Just like that. Of course, if an elemental fairy was placed in front of them, they definitely wouldn't refuse. Or if it was someone like Yi Zichen, who had 5 types of elemental fairies in his body, they naturally wouldn't let him go. In their eyes, the star rank was as easy as blowing off dust. The status of elemental spirits in the universe was still very high. There were still many people who wanted to obtain it. However, certain conditions had to be met in order to become an elemental spirits carrier. Hence, everyone's enthusiasm for the elemental spirits did not reach a crazy level. Let me give you a simple example. An overlord who was not proficient in the elements, a pure martial artist. The elemental spirits could only provide a limited boost to them. Perhaps their bodies could become a carrier for the young elemental spirits, but the increase in strength of the young elemental spirits might not even be comparable to a weapon. if he wanted to raise the realm of his elemental fairies. Their elemental affinity, control, and resistance all needed to be improved. Everything had to start from scratch. How could they have the patience to improve themselves bit by bit, and thus improve their elemental spirits? In this way, the elemental spirits were not of much use to them. But if an elemental spirit really did appear, they would still fight for it. The reason was simple: a supreme treasure that he could not use. Even if he left it to gather dust in his own home, it would still belong to him. His mood would definitely be different. What's more, even if he couldn't use it, he could still give it to someone else. If he gave it to an overlord who needed an elemental spirit, it was easy to imagine how important it would be. As a result, Yi Zichen, who possessed an elemental spirit, could not reveal the fact that he possessed one before he had absolute power. A man's wealth was his own ruin. This was a principle that had existed since ancient times. As for his breakthrough to the star rank, his most direct perception of the elemental spirits was he felt the elemental spirits' suppression. They were intentionally suppressing their own strength, slowing down the rate at which they increased their strength. At first, Yi Zichen was confused. He naturally did not doubt that the elemental spirits would be disloyal to him. Far too many things had happened between them, and they had long since reached the point of sharing honor and disgrace. They would give up on increasing their own strength. They were intentionally suppressing it. The only possibility was that they were afraid of him. They were afraid that their strength would reach a critical point where Yi Zichen could not handle it. So they did this. Yi Zichen had the same suspicions. That was why today's scene had happened. Lil Fire hasn't woken up yet because of me, right? Yi Zichen pursed his lips at the elemental spirits. The fire elemental spirit had actually been asleep for a while, but he showed no signs of waking up at all, which confused Yi Zichen. The fire elemental spirit nodded. Yi Zichen let out a long sigh, then looked at them. Since you guys are worried about me, then just say it. There's no need to hide anything between us. The lightning elemental spirit hesitated for a moment. Controlling the elements and increasing elemental resistance and affinity isn't something that can be done in a day. We don't want you to ruin your future plans because of this. Ha, you're thinking too much. Yi Zichen suddenly laughed. What plans could I possibly have? I'll tell you the truth. Right now, my brain is a mess as well. I suddenly entered the universe, and everything there has impacted me greatly. Right now, I feel very lost about the future. Those were Yi Zichen's true thoughts. Up until now, he really couldn't find a clear goal. Increase his strength. That was naturally what he had been thinking all along. The problem was, where should he start? He had never been able to find a suitable direction. Thus, all he could do was take it one step at a time and try to determine the direction he wanted to go. Since that's the case, why don't you go back to the Emperor's Star? Suddenly, the cute and obedient wind elemental spirit asked softly, since you're so lost, why don't you go home? Chapter 2365. Home. Earth. Yi Zichen sat in his room and looked out the window. Little Sister Wind. The water fairy tugged on the wind fairy's hand. Although he didn't know why the Emperor's Star didn't want to go back, and he didn't bother to think about it, he felt like the Emperor's Star definitely had his own reasons. The elemental fairies actually had a private discussion. They could also sense that the Emperor's Star had been very lost recently. No matter what he did, he didn't have a clear goal. It was like he just did whatever he wanted. They also felt worried about this situation. Why do you say that? After a moment of silence, Yi Zichen looked at the wind fairy warmly. He felt like, since the wind fairy said that, she definitely had her own reasons for doing so. During this period of time, he was indeed rather lost. He couldn't find the direction he wanted to go. The elemental fairies were no longer the little dolls they used to be. After devouring the elemental crystals, both their minds and bodies had grown a lot. Their memories of following the Milky Way Master were also awakening. Listening to their opinions wasn't a bad choice. Actually, we've discussed it in private. The wind fairy clenched her fists, pursed her lips, and walked over. Her bright eyes were filled with seriousness. The lightning fairy had told them in private. The Emperor's Star hadn't returned because he felt like he wasn't strong enough. He wanted to strengthen himself in the outside world before going back to Earth. That way, He would have a certain amount of ability to protect himself in case the Emperor Star really did get attacked. But to be honest, they truly didn't feel like the Emperor Star was doing very well in the universe. Everything about the Emperor Star actually came from the second universe. He could totally return to Earth. Even if the Milky Way didn't have a universal virtual network, he could live on a neighboring planet. He could go back to Earth whenever he wanted and leave whenever he wanted to enter the second universe. Wouldn't that be even better? Yizichen's eyes lit up when he heard the Wind Fairy's words, which were the private discussions between the elemental fairies. Truly, he couldn't see the situation clearly. He who was in the middle of it all hadn't thought of that. It was indeed a good decision to live on a planet adjacent to the Milky Way. Emperor Star, actually, you've never truly understood yourself. Suddenly, after saying those words, the wind elemental sprite spoke again as if it had made up its mind. As soon as she finished speaking, the water, thunder, and lightning elemental spirits all looked terrified. The water elemental elf even reached out to grab the wind elemental elf, shaking her head vigorously at her. Sister Foam, I must tell you, the wind elemental fairy frowned. Yizichen also frowned when he saw that. It seems like the private discussion between the elemental fairies isn't as simple as they said. Speak, Yizichen said, then looked towards the water elemental sprite. Sensing Yizichen's gaze, the water elemental sprite let go bitterly, then took a few steps back and scratched its head nervously. Actually, you're just bluffing right now. The wind elemental elf shouted with all his might. Sister Foam, the water elemental sprite shouted. The lightning elemental sprite covered its face, while the lightning elemental sprite silently lowered its head. We're done for. It seemed like the wind elemental sprite was prepared to tell the Emperor Star everything the elemental sprites had said in private. In fact, they were just talking about it in private. Perhaps there was some resentment in it. However, this did not affect their trust and loyalty to the Imperial Star. It's just that was what they thought, but when it reached the ears of the Emperor Star, it might not necessarily agree with them. Continue, said Yizichen. Our memories are awakening. You know that, said the wind elemental sprite. Awakening means that we're beginning to recover our memories of the Lord of the Milky Way. Yes, from our messed up memories, even though we don't have all of those memories yet, we can feel that there's a huge difference between you and the Lord of the Milky Way. But the few of us can also feel that there's a huge gap between you and the Milky Way Master. No matter what he does, he has a clear goal and direction. No matter what he does or what he does, he always has a clear goal and direction. It's just like how he abandoned us. From the looks of it, no one in the entire universe can do that. It's just like how he abandoned us. No one in the entire universe can do that. Yizichen nodded. He had to admit that. Even though he was already in prison, the 5 elemental sprites could be of great help to him. If it were anyone else, he would definitely conserve his strength for the sake of his own survival and search for a chance to turn the situation around. If it was someone else, for the sake of his own survival, he would definitely conserve his strength and search for a chance to turn the tables. But he had given up on the 5 elemental spirits. From this, one could see the decisiveness of the Master of the Galaxy. You inherited the mantle of the Master of the Galaxy and obtained the treasures that the Master of the Galaxy left for you. But really, from your current performance, you won't be the second Master of the Galaxy. This denial caused Yizichen's heart to tremble. He had thought that someone would say it to him so bluntly, but he had never thought that it would be a wind elemental elf. This once timid little girl. His words were so sharp that even Yizichen found them somewhat unfamiliar. He silently looked at this little girl who had already grown up a little. He silently watched and silently listened to this elemental spirit who had already become a young girl. You've shouldered the rise and fall of the galaxy on your own shoulders. But you don't realize that you don't have the qualifications to do so in your current state. If you were really responsible for the rise and fall of the entire Milky Way galaxy, would you have the right to be confused now? You wouldn't. If you had the strength, then you wouldn't be confused. You should be clear about your goals. Since you're confused, It means that you can't bear this burden. This burden is causing you to lose your direction. The wind elemental fairy shouted angrily, then her tone changed. You're thinking too much. You're worried about the future of the Milky Way galaxy, but you're afraid of the enemy of the master of the galaxy. You desperately want to be able to take charge, but you don't realize that the more you do this, the more confused you will feel. Why do you have to think so much? Do you really understand yourself? There's a saying on Earth, don't take up that job if you don't have the ability. Right now, you're only at the star level. What you need to do is improve yourself, not think about how you're going to deal with trouble when it comes. Don't say that trouble hasn't come yet. If it does, can you deal with it right now? I'm not trying to discourage you. If you continue like this when the Milky Way galaxy truly perishes and the planet you live on becomes a colony, a slave planet, all you can do only beat your chest and stamp your feet in frustration. Also, die without caring about the consequences. You don't even have the right to cry. Chapter 2366. Sometimes the truth was just that hard to accept. Living in an imaginary world, the bubble would burst one day. When that day really came, despair and frustration would be of no use. The wind elemental fairy's words. It was like a sharp blade, extinguishing all of Yi Zichen's fantasies. It was just as she said, if things continued like this when despair arrived, he might not be able to do anything for the Milky Way galaxy. It's not that serious, is it? The lightning elemental fairy scratched her head and grinned, as if trying to ease the tension. The Emperor's star has actually already done very well. The Milky Way master and the Emperor's star can't even be compared. That's right. The water elemental fairy chimed in. The Milky Way master's Milky Way galaxy has always been within the boundaries of the universe. Whether it's in terms of civilization or human genetics, they're the cream of the crop. The civilization and genes of the planet where the Emperor star is located are too inferior. That's right. The more mature lightning elemental fairy nodded as well. We all know what the Emperor star is like. Their genetics are inferior, and their civilization is backward. By the time the Milky Way master entered the universe, the planet already had records of a universe. This time, the Emperor star entered the universe as a pioneer. Facing the vast universe, it's understandable that the Emperor star would feel lost. The elemental fairies tried to find excuses for the Emperor star. Their reasoning was simple. They didn't want the relationship between the Emperor star and the elemental fairies to deteriorate. It didn't matter what Yi Zichen's future prospects were. They'd already attached themselves to him. In the future, they'd have to coexist. The wind elemental fairies' words were too harsh. This wasn't the result they wanted. Lil Lightning, saying such unconscionable things isn't like you. Yi Zichen couldn't help but shake his head and smile wryly. The wind elemental fairy's words were a bit harsh. However, Yi Zichen wasn't arrogant or conceited. He couldn't say he completely understood himself, but he knew his own limits. He listened to the wind elemental fairy's words and didn't think she was wrong. This was the truth. There was no need to defend himself. I'm telling the truth. Unexpectedly, the thunder elemental sprite was very certain of his thoughts. Emperor Star, you know me. I'm definitely not the kind of person who cares about other people's feelings. If you really didn't do a good job, I would be adding insult to injury. That's right, we did talk about some of your shortcomings in private, but you can't deny that your growth in this 1 year is very shocking. Shocking. Yi Zichen really didn't feel happy about this sort of praise. Was it that shocking? It has been a year since he left Earth. Up until now, he still hadn't been able to truly take charge. What he lacked wasn't just a little bit. The only thing that could make him feel better was that he had broken through to the star level. This was all thanks to the fire elemental sprite's nourishment. As for the breakthrough of the second universe, at most, it would allow him to live a little easier here, but not to the point of absolute domination. Before the first and second universes fused, his strength in the second universe had no effect or influence on reality. Based on the current situation, no matter how many resources were poured into this place, or how much they believed in it, it was still a virtual world. Before the two universes merged, the first universe was still reality. It was impossible for him to bring everyone in the Milky Way, or rather Earth, here in advance. Then his achievements here were equivalent to zero. Before the wind elemental sprite said those words, Yi Zichen had been hypnotizing himself with his achievements in the second universe, trying to convince himself of everything he had done. In reality, all he was doing now was thinking about the future. If it was the Milky Way in the first universe, it wouldn't have much of an effect. Emperor Star, don't be in such a hurry to deny yourself. Perhaps sensing Yi Zichen's disappointment, the thunder elemental sprite's tone suddenly darkened. Do you really think you're that bad? Have you ever thought about it? From the domain level to the star level, even high-level humans in the universe would need several years, or even dozens of years. Yet, you did it in less than a year. 1 year. Do you know what kind of talent you have? Actually, you've already worked very hard. Let's talk about when you first left Earth. At the time, forget the warlord level, even the star level could instantly kill you. But didn't you just fight with the warlord level not long ago? How many people in the universe can challenge the warlord level? Do you really think you're that bad? You're not bad. Instead, you're very outstanding. The thunder elemental sprite shouted loudly, then walked in front of Yi Zichen. You must have misunderstood us. Regardless of whether it's our private discussion or what Big Sister Phone just said to you, it's not that we doubt your abilities. We've always trusted and believed in you. The only thing we're discussing is that you went in the wrong direction. Yi Zichen couldn't help but ponder as he looked at the thunder elemental sprite and the wind elemental sprite. I went in the wrong direction? You didn't choose the wrong direction yourself. It was Shea who led you down the wrong path, causing you to drift further and further away. What does that have to do with Shea? Yi Zichen frowned. Ask yourself, do you really want to leave Earth? The thunder elemental sprite looked into Yi Zichen's eyes with a serious expression. Leaving Earth for the universe and coming to this foreign environment, is that really what you want from the bottom of your heart? Or is it really to the point where I have no choice but to leave Earth, or else the entire galaxy will be destroyed? Actually, no. Everything was said by Shea. You might have subconsciously thought that what she said was right because you don't understand the universe, so you thought that what she said was right. Am I right? Yi Zichen silently thought about what the thunder elemental sprite said, then nodded. Of course, he didn't want to leave Earth. His only thought when he was in the God realm was to return to Earth, but the planet was frozen, so he couldn't go back. When everything was over, he swore that he would continue living on Earth. He didn't expect to run into the matter of the master of the galaxy. When he found out that Earth might be in danger, he started to panic. He started to think of everything he could to save his planet. He decided to leave with Shea. In reality, he wasn't happy at all after coming to this foreign environment. He was very lost. He didn't know what to do. He was also very lonely. When he was in the God realm, at least his good friends were there. Even if he was in a foreign place, he could still receive Su Yan's and the other strength. But here, he was alone. He was the vanguard of Earth's exploration of the universe. He walked alone at the very front. When he felt tired, he had no one he could rely on. All he could do was advance silently. In this illusory universe, he had no goal or destination. He could only explore in a daze. Fortunately, Su Yun came not long ago. Yi Zichen thought he could relax, but to his surprise, Su Yun left again. The moment he left, loneliness enveloped Yi Zichen like an irresistible curtain of night. He could have endured the darkness if he had never seen a single ray of light. When that ray of light appeared and disappeared, and darkness enveloped his heart once more, the loneliness was even stronger than before. He began to work as hard as he could. He didn't let his imagination run wild. In the end, he was a mess. Sometimes, he would mutter to himself and deny himself. Was he really suited to be the vanguard of the Milky Way? Clearly, he'd never dreamed of saving the world. His way of thinking had always been simple. He just wanted to live an ordinary life. He had a few good friends and a woman he could spend the rest of his life with. That was the mentality of a commoner. Although those 20 years of ordinary life were short in the eyes of someone who had lived for more than 100 years, they were memories and imprints that could never be erased. Chapter 2367. Yi Zichen's homesickness was like a tidal wave. In that instant, Yi Zichen's mind was filled with memories of the past. He wanted to go back to the past so much. Back to when Elder Lin came to find him after his duel with Yale, and when he refused. It was a pity there weren't so many ifs. What's more, even if he could go back in time, he believed that he would still have nodded when Elder Lin told him about the Milky Way's future. At some point, it wasn't about whether he wanted to or not. It was something he had to do. He couldn't refuse. The lightning and wind elemental fairy's words had a huge impact on him. At the very least, for an instant, he really did want to return to Earth and disregard everything. There were so many ambitious people in the Milky Way. Why'd he have to do it? It was only for an instant. After that, Yi Zichen tossed that laughable thought to the back of his mind and even laughed at himself. He wanted to back out. I'm sorry. I don't have the right to back out anymore. Even though you're right, me coming to the universe has nothing to do with Shea. She was just giving me a suggestion. I'm the one who made the decision. Yi Zichen replied solemnly. He didn't want to find those ridiculous excuses and push the problem onto others. That sort of irresponsible behavior was far too childish. He was no longer a young man who couldn't be independent. He was now an adult. No matter if his decision was right or wrong, he had to bear the consequences. Pushing the blame away. That definitely wasn't a solution. We're not making excuses for you. The lightning elemental fairy let out a long sigh. The thunder elemental sprite let out a long sigh. Emperor Star, we've already said this much. Do you still not understand what we're trying to say? Yi Zichen could sense the anxiety in the lightning elemental fairy's expression. He looked at the elemental fairies in confusion. He really didn't know what they were trying to say. The only thing he could sense was that they seemed to be trying to persuade him to return to Earth. He really wanted to go back. But now, even if he went back, what could he do for Earth? Settle down in a corner. The result would definitely be death. Emperor Star, have you ever thought about where your power comes from? The wind elemental sprite pursed its lips. Haven't you considered where the source of all this power came from, ever since you were an ordinary person and grew step by step to where you are now? What makes you thirst for power? What makes you want to have power? Have you ever thought about it? Silence. All of a sudden, Yi Zichen felt as if he'd been enlightened. He froze in place. Where did his power come from? Why did he desire power? In order to protect his family and friends, in order to save them from suffering. Your strength comes from love. The wind elemental sprite frowned and shouted. Your power is completely dependent on love. You want to protect your family and friends. You want to protect. You love them, so you can obtain power. Think about it carefully. Every time your strength increased significantly, every time you turned misfortune into blessing, wasn't it all because of love? Love. It was a very general definition, but it was also an appropriate explanation. The love that the wind elemental elf mentioned was obviously not the kind of love between a man and a woman. This kind of love was not love. It was a macroscopic generalization. It was like a sister's love for her little brother or a parent's love for their children. Was that love? You met a beggar on the road and gave him $1. Was that love? Love? It definitely wasn't as simple as love. Love could sum up everything. Right now, you are walking in the opposite direction of the source of your power. Right now, you no longer feel love for the Milky Way galaxy. It is responsibility and burden. This is pressure for you, but it is definitely not motivation. The reason why we want you to return to Earth is because you can only be by their side and feel their existence. That is the true you. What's the difference between you and a responsible machine right now? The wind elemental sprite clenched her fists and shouted. She really couldn't continue staying silent like this. As elemental sprites, they shouldn't influence their host's decisions. However, when they saw Yi Zichen walk down the wrong path step by step and walk further and further down this path without any intention of turning back, they were truly worried. Perhaps, if Yi Zichen continued down this path, he would definitely be able to achieve something. None of the elemental sprites could deny that. Yi Zichen's personality, the determination he'd tempered after experiencing far too many things, and the fact that he was an elemental sprite, made it impossible for him to become a mediocre person. He could make a name for himself. However, they had no way of knowing how long that would take. When that day truly came, they couldn't be sure what kind of changes would occur to Yi Zichen's heart. But from the looks of it, they could already sense Yi Zichen's exhaustion and haggard heart. If he continued like this, he might break down before accomplishing anything. That wasn't the result they wanted. Thus, even though it would infuriate Yi Zichen, the wind elemental sprite felt like she had to stand up and explain everything to him. The Emperor Star she liked was the one who always smiled, whose eyes were filled with gentleness, and who was filled with hope for the future. Not this one. There was no longer any color in her eyes. Her entire face was filled with depression and worry. Her tightly knitted brows never relaxed. Her smile was forced. In the middle of the night, she sat by the window and sighed. She didn't like it. She wanted the old Emperor Star to laugh and joke with the sprites when he returned. When she was afraid, he had a pair of warm hands on her head to give her confidence. He could stand up confidently in times of danger. She could see that trustworthy figure again. She could feel the confidence that belonged to the Emperor Star back in the Milky Way. That was what the wind elemental sprite wanted. She didn't think as much as the other elemental sprites. For the future, for the Emperor Star to stand at the peak of the world, the master of the Milky Way, she never wanted to compare Yi Zichen to the master of the Milky Way. It didn't matter whether or not she was the Elven Queen, whether or not she followed the master of the Milky Way, or what stories and memories she had with the master of the Milky Way. Right now, the most important thing to her was Yi Zichen. All of her memories were Yi Zichen's. She was Yi Zichen's wind elemental sprite. Although she was still very weak and stupid, Yi Zichen still treated her with warmth. What she wanted, the person who took care of her like a big brother. It was that simple. Chapter 2368. A machine? Yi Zichen listened to the wind elemental fairy screams. After a moment of silence, he saw the corners of her eyes moisten. He reached out and pinched her cheek. Yi Zichen's eyes revealed a gentleness that wasn't there before. Elemental fairies cry, too. You're actually a type of human, right? Yi Zichen patted the wind elemental fairy's little head. The instant his hand covered it, the wind elemental elf raised her head subconsciously with tears in her eyes. In that instant, she seemed to have felt that the gentle big brother from before had returned. She looked him up and down. It was as if his frown really wasn't as deep as before. His gaze was as gentle as autumn waters. Emperor Star, I really have to thank you, little fellows. Yi Zichen opened his arms and hugged all of the elemental fairies. The lightning elemental fairy wanted to struggle, but he didn't like this sort of emotional scene. Thus, he gave up after struggling for a while and couldn't help but reveal a smile. They'd said everything they discussed in private, things they didn't dare say to the Emperor Star. There was no barrier like they'd imagined. The Emperor Star seemed to accept everything they'd said, and it seemed to be working. That was enough. If the Emperor Star could mend his ways, they'd truly be satisfied. Yi Zichen felt the elemental fairies in his arms. Yi Zichen hugged them silently, their words echoing in his mind. It really was embarrassing. In the end, he needed these kids to remind him. Emperor Star, are we going back now? The lightning elemental fairy looked up and asked. In truth, his longing for Earth was no less than Yi Zichen's. There were people they missed there too, although it was very short. It could not be denied that those days in kindergarten had left a very deep mark in the hearts of the elemental elves. Elemental fairies were born alone. They'd always traveled alone. They'd only made friends after they grew up. During their childhood, they had to stay in their own elemental lands. Only when they were strong enough to leave would they venture out into the universe. To them, their childhood memories were of the vast elemental lands. They had no friends, but in the kindergarten, they saw many people who seemed to be the same age as them. They could play around. They could learn knowledge that they already knew. It was a very happy time. It was also a very precious memory. Perhaps this time, they would not be able to return to the kindergarten, but they still wanted to return to Earth. They liked the way of communication there, and they liked everyone there. It might not be possible now. Suddenly, Yi Zichen let go of them and answered seriously, "You're right. No. The lightning elemental fairy was rather anxious. It struggled out of Yi Zichen's arms and stared straight into Yi Zichen's eyes. Why? Didn't we make it clear just now? You really shouldn't continue to travel alone like this. You are not a person who can endure loneliness. Why do you still insist on walking with an iron head? Lei, you're acting a little strange today. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and looked at the angry young man in front of him. Why do you want to return to Earth so urgently? Is there someone waiting for you on Earth? As they spoke, the two sprites ran over to Yi Zichen's side and whispered to each other. Yi Zichen nodded with a look of understanding in his eyes. OL2, OL5. Sensing the lightning elemental fairy's anger, the water and lightning elemental fairies quickly ran elsewhere. Zaziz, Lil Lei, you're really something. You actually managed to pick up girls in kindergarten? Teacher, that's a teacher. Yi Zichen teased. The lightning elemental fairy blushed, then stuttered with its head lowered. I didn't. I'm just a rather good friend. For some reason, a cute image surfaced in the lightning elemental fairy's mind. She was clearly just a child, yet she came to a kindergarten to be a teacher. She was stupid every day and couldn't do anything well. However, the lightning elemental fairy could not forget her innocent smile and her cute look when she did something wrong. She was an angel. That's true. You probably don't like being too young. Even though you look like a 3-year-old back then, your mind is several tens of thousands of years old, and you've experienced a lot. Yi Zichen smiled. Stop it! The lightning elemental fairy shouted and waved its hand in annoyance. I already said it wasn't because of her. You're getting shy? Yi Zichen smiled, then stopped teasing the lightning elemental fairy. He turned to look at the other elemental fairies. Don't misunderstand. It's not that I don't want to return to Earth. Actually, I already had this thought before you guys even mentioned it. Since everything about me is in this virtual network, going back to Earth or Blue River Planet doesn't matter. But we can't directly go back right now. Sovereign Spirit Phoenix, the lightning elemental fairy asked. That's right. The Venerable had remained in his castle so far. Yi Zichen had already been in the game for 2 months, but she was still staying there without any intention of leaving. It wasn't that Yi Zichen didn't like this big sis. The main thing was that her intentions and trustworthiness were not to the point where Yi Zichen was willing to go all out. If he returned to Earth now, then she would definitely follow him back based on her behavior. What should he do then? No one knew what kind of wish she had. Who was she loyal to? She might not enslave Earth, but what would she do when she sees the gods? Would she inform the higher-ups in the universe? These were all questions that needed to be considered. What's more, the fire elemental commander was not dealt with yet. Yi Zichen would not be able to feel at ease if he wasn't dealt with. That's true. The wind elemental fairy nodded. The wind elemental fairy also nodded. The Venerable Spirit Phoenix's existence was indeed a variable. During this period of time, we should try our best to strengthen ourselves. We will definitely return to Earth, but we need to find a suitable time. Yi Zichen promised the other elemental fairies seriously. Yi Zichen promised the other elemental fairies seriously. To his surprise, the elemental fairies all stared at him silently without saying anything. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Yi Zichen tilted his head. How are we going to increase our strength? The water elemental fairy replied lazily. If we mention it again, then you're going to explode. Are you sure you want to spiral into the sky? If you want to, it's simple. Then the water elemental fairy took out an elemental crystal. It's just a crystal. As long as I bite it, then you can reincarnate. We'll go find a new host.